Hey everybody, it's JJ and we're back again for another ASUS PCDIY hardware live stream. Actually, I think this is 100, right? So congrats, right? A little bit of pat on the back for maybe myself, but also, of course, for all, excuse me, for all of you that are joining us for the stream. It's fantastic to have you guys here, being able to join us for another PCDIY hardware stream. We've got actually a lot to cover about, of course, for those of you that are, of course, part of our PCDIY group and been following our social media channels. You know that we've been busy with quite a number of new announcements, especially in relation to Gamescom 2023. And we've had, of course, some really long-awaited products, right, that we essentially announced there, right, with essentially three brand new ROG Swift OLED displays. We also went ahead and gave you a little bit of that soft announcement for our upcoming Z790 series of refresh for motherboards. And then from there, we've also got a little bit of kind of other products that have been sprinkled in, ranging from some peripheral updates and networking updates and a couple of other items. And of course, today, of course, also aligns with the brand new announcement from our friends over at AMD with two new GPUs with the Radeon RX 7800 XT as well as the Radeon RX 7700 XT. And of course, we have both of those GPUs underneath our TUF Gaming series. And actually really exciting for this generation, we're introducing also a white variant for the 7900 XT, excuse me, for the 7800 XT. We're going to have actually a white and black model. That's the first time for our TUF Gaming series graphics cards. So we're going to be talking about all of that. We'll also hopefully be able to squeeze in a few builds in terms of our PCDIY Builder Spotlight, and of course take a look at your guys' questions and comments that might come up in the stream. So let's see who we have joining us today in the stream. We've got Connor Johnson joining us, man. Number 100. That's wild, right? Yeah, I mean, it flies by pretty quickly. I haven't even realized necessarily it was 100. I was like making the titles and I was like, oh wow, you know, we've had 100. Pretty cool, right? And hopefully as we move forward for the remainder of the year, we actually might be doing a few more actually giveaways specific to the streams, as well as some cool stuff that we have planned for the ASUS PCDIY group. If you guys didn't know, recently had a little bit of an org change shift, and so you'll be seeing Jake taking over the primary responsibilities of managing our PCDIY group and our community. But we've got some cool opportunities to be able to do a little bit more giveaways. So outside of the giveaways that we've pretty much frequently been doing in terms of ASUS North America, you'll see some cool opportunities specific to the group and some of the stuff in the stream. So make sure to keep it tuned, man. Paskowitz, happy to have you here, man. Thanks for joining us on the stream. H2O Computers, as always, a great builder and a great member of our community. Fantastic to have you there. Erica, always appreciated to join us here on the stream and letting us know their audio sounded good. We've got the one, the only, we got Sumin joining us as well. We've got Michael Braun joining us. We've got also another Mike, Mike Russo. Wait, let's go for 3 for 3. We got Michael also joining us from up north in Canada. Fantastic. Hey, JC, man. JC doing some awesome stuff. JC was actually able to pick up a Glacial, man, and at actually a pretty awesome price. So, man, congrats, man. Thanks for being Team RG and Team Maximus. So, we've got quite a number of things. Michael notes volume. He wants to bump it up a little bit. Why doesn't everybody else? Let me know if the volume levels sound good for you guys. If they're good, I can go ahead and bump up 1 or 2, but just let me know and I'll make a quick adjustment. So I'll go ahead and leave a little bit of opportunity and we can get ready to jump into it. First things first, though, before we get into, of course, talking about some of the latest and greatest products, we do want to go ahead and talk about some UEFI BIOS updates. We've actually had quite a number of UEFI BIOS updates that have come out recently. So I want to give a little bit of a general recap specifically for AM5 owners as well as AM4 owners. So AM4, of course, is going to be for, of course, your prior generation Zen series. So that's going to be for chipsets like X570, X470, B450, B550, things along those lines. And then, of course, with AM5, that's our current generation platforms, right? So you're talking about like B650, B650E, X670E, X670, things along those lines. And so there's been corresponding updates for both of those, and we also have some additional new updates that have recently come in for the Socket 1700 platform, or Z790. Now, none of these I would refer to as being what are called critical base releases, but I think I just want to give you guys a little bit of an update in terms of some of the things you can keep in mind, especially I think for AM5, there's been maybe some additional improvements, and we'll touch on a few of those points. So we'll get ready to jump into that. But let's quickly just see if audio sounds good. Erica says it's good for her. Radiant says it sounds good for him. And Orbit says a little low for me. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and we're going to go 2 bumps and let me know if that sounds good for you guys. We'll go from there. If we need a little bit more of adjustment, feel free and let me know. All right, so first things first, let's go ahead and just jump into UEFI release. So this is going to be for pretty much all of our current Z790 series motherboards have had recently a release in terms of the UEFI updates. So I'm going to go ahead and use actually the board that I've got right here next to me. This is our Prime Series Prime Z790A board. and it's going to be generally representative of what we're referring to. So, of course, for those of you not aware, in terms of UEFI updates, pretty straightforward. This is the UEFI environment, easy flash. Now, you can have different ways that you can actually flash. You can flash within Windows, you can flash within the UEFI, or you can use something like a flash drive and use USB BIOS flashback. The main thing I want you to keep aware, and some people are not always aware about, especially for the more recent platforms on Intel's side, is that there have generally been ME firmware updates, which is Intel's management engine, which is supplemental to the UEFI firmware. So it's important that you generally want to make sure that both of those pieces of firmware are updated. So once you actually update the UEFI, you actually want to also make sure to go ahead and update the MEI firmware. So what does that MEI firmware experience look like? Let me go ahead and actually show you what that would look like in terms of your operating system environment. So give me a second to go ahead and open up an image here and show you kind of what that looks like. And I'll also kind of walk you through what the process would be if you were attempting to do this kind of yourself, okay? So let me go ahead and bring this up here. And yeah, I think I got a couple of screenshots saved, so this should hopefully be able to cover this for anybody that's not aware. And the MEI firmware is important because in situations where you actually update, let's say the UEFI, but you don't necessarily actually upgrade the MEI firmware, what might happen? You can actually run into interoperability issues, stability issues. So you do want to ultimately make sure that you're updating this firmware to be able to ensure that you have the best experience possible on your platform, okay? So let me go ahead and bring this up here. And we'll go ahead and show you guys here. So this is pretty much what it looks like. There's an integrated MEI update tool you can download on the service and support website. And I'll show you what that looks like. We'll quickly actually go over to the service and support website and we'll download. We'll go to the download section and I'll show you which file you're actually looking at. You'll click a button. You do want to keep in mind that if you're running some form of BitLocker encryption or things like that, you want to make sure you have backup your key, you have access to your key information in the event that things get reset. It's very, very important, right? So keep that in mind because, of course, if you don't have access to it, nobody else is going to have access to it, okay? Once the actual update completes, it's pretty straightforward. You can then go ahead and confirm the MEI information within the UEFI environment at the same time that you can also go ahead and confirm the UEFI BIOS update. For those of you wondering about it, if you feel that it's a stable, reliable release, this is not a beta release. It's already a formal release, which means it has passed qualification and testing. I've gone ahead and already tested 3 different motherboards with these series of RAIDIS updates, which just started issued in the last about week and a half. I have had no issues. Everything's ran through with stability and reliability. Went ahead and did just a couple of clock testing performance. Also, you can see right here, we got our Z790-A board. You can see overclocked here where I even did a little bit of higher performance tuning. This is 7200. You can see running a full stress test and stability test without any issues for an hour. I think this is like a different kit right here. Yeah, this is with 6400 kit of memory and again running without any issues. Of course, as always, you know, with overclocking, there's going to be variability and there's other factors to keep in mind. But you're good to go in that respect. So that is going to be specifically for the Intel platform. And now lastly, I just want to show you guys, for those that you have not completed MEI firmware updates, again, where is that actual file and how do you download it? So go ahead and just bring up that page for you guys and we'll wrap this part up before we get to the AMD side of the fence, okay? Excuse me. Sorry guys if I have a little bit of coffee. I was a little bit sick, so still recovering a little bit from that, so apologies. All right, so we head over to the support page for your model, so just click over on that support tab. Once you head over to that support tab, just go to drivers and tools, and under drivers and tools you'll see that there's 2 tabs. You have drivers and tools and you have BIOS and firmware, so you want to click on that BIOS and firmware. And we can see here for our model that UEFI release that I talked about, it's pretty recent right there. It's from 8/18, okay? Now, if you expand all, you'll see here that you have UEFIs, right? All those UEFI releases. But then below that directly, you'll see the Intel ME, and that's the Intel ME firmware tool. So that's the management engine firmware. And right there, you can download. So that is 2 independent files. So again, generally for certain UEFI releases, it will note there that you do also want to make sure to update the MEI firmware. And if we scroll all the way back up there, you can actually see right there, update the MEI to that corresponding version number. So you can see that they're kind of linked together. So you always want to make sure to download both of them to be able to get the best experience. All right, guys. So that covers us on the Intel side of the fence. Let me quickly see if we had any questions there on that side, and we'll go from there. So Cowboy's asking, when is the ROG Waterblock prototype available to buy? Well, that's a little bit contradictory, right? It's a prototype. So hence, being in a prototype means that we have never finalized an actual production model of it. So, of course, you wouldn't be able to purchase it. If you're referring to the Ryujin 3, essentially kind of head, right, which was like a pump it was essentially like a prototype concept that we were showing, hey, if you want to have like a block, right, with fittings and this little package to be able to integrate into a custom liquid cooled configuration, is this something you're interested in? So we've kind of been collecting feedback from the community. Overall, it's been pretty responsive in terms of, I'd say, being positive and being put into kind of design development stages. But it's not something that we have a hard kind of date to say, hey, this is when it's going to be available, or more information. Rest assured, though, if we get closer to that stage, we're going to be looking at actually channel availability and release. We'll definitely be mentioning it not only here in the PCDIY stream, but we'll definitely also be making sure to release that information in our PCDIY group. So as always, just make sure to go ahead and keep it tuned to the community for that information. All right. So let me go ahead and just see if there's anything else on that side. Is that an invisible tower on the right? It's not an invisible tower. It's just a clear, it's a clear, actually acrylic test bed, but I've flipped it up instead of keeping it kind of horizontally flat. I flipped it up on the side. So that's all that is, right? So let me go ahead and just see right here. Yes, when will the Z790 BIOS 1202 be superseded by a newer version without issues? I'm not sure what you mean by Michael, but again, the version that I just showed you right there is already, I already supersedes that version and I haven't had any issues. I mean, the important thing that you always want to keep in mind, again, with UEFI releases is, one, don't update if you don't need to, right? The reality is that Z790 has already been a feature and functionality, very stable platform, and it has been for some time. So most releases generally are either going to be security based, they might be specifically to patch interoperability with a specific type of component, so maybe a new memory kit, maybe a certain type of storage device, could be maybe enhancing interoperability compatibility with maybe like a new GPU. There can be kind of variable situations, but if everything's running well for you, there's no reason to just randomly decide to update. If you do update, though, the critical thing you have to keep in mind is that different kind of auto rules and different types of parameters can be reset. So it's always important. What I tell people is always benchmark from a stock-to-stock perspective. So if you flash to a new UEFI, ideally you want to test actually verifying stability at F5 defaults before you're in an overclock preset. Once you've vetted stability at that point, you then move into actually testing your overclock. And part of the reason why is because since underlying auto rules can change, that can affect your overclocking. So a profile that could have previously been actually stable under one build might not be stable on the other build because there could have been underlying auto rules that have changed, right? That is the reality of just changes that sometimes occur. Now, usually, you know, builds generally be fairly kind of contiguous in terms of that usually a profile should be pretty similar, but sometimes there can be enough variance that you might have to go back in and kind of retune or retweak something. That's the reason, though, why overclocking is always going to historically and consistently and even progressively in the future always will be more marginal, more variable, right, in terms of your experience than you would have when you're just running stock default, right? For most users that run just stock to stock, they actually run into less issues. One other kind of just insight tip that I do give to people that sometimes they forget about, again, that MEI issue can be a problem. I've seen people, they update the firmware for the UEFI and then they don't update the MEI firmware and they have issues. And then once they update the MEI firmware, they don't have any more issues. Another thing, though, is sometimes you have to maybe reinstall your chipset drivers, your GPU drivers. Sometimes there can be kind of the operating system can be thrown a little bit too kind of a curve, and you might have to kind of just reinitialize certain kind of drivers, put those back in there to kind of make sure everything's running smoothly. All right. Hopefully that takes care of that. Introvert alert. Hey, JJ, why hasn't ASUS released a 420mm AI CPU cooler? Is it due to a lack of demand? Actually, yeah, that's pretty much it. The reality is that it's not just due to a lack of demand. It's also just volumetrically, the vast majority is on the chassis on the market don't support 420mm, right? We do have one, right? We do have our ProArt chassis, excuse me, our upcoming ProArt chassis, which is going to support that. We also will have the Hyperion, which is of course right now, which does support 420mm, but historically as a whole, if you look at actually where the majority of the volume is in the market, it's 240mm and then 360mm. There are also factors such as the Z height, like how thick the radiator is, right? The thickness of the radiator has to be accounted for as well. But that's really the main reason, because you're kind of excluding a very large amount of the market by making a very specific unit. And we also find that once you start to get to that certain kind of pricing, the percentage of the user starts to increase to go into kind of the liquid cooling community as well. So we think it makes a little bit more sense for users in that respect. That being noted, we do have an actually 420mm that we have already announced, the actual ProArt 420mm AIO solution that will be coming to the market. I don't know if we'll have it by the beginning of Q4, but just make sure to keep it tuned. That will actually be our first 420mm AIO solution. So even with that, yes, overall it is a more limited offering for the totality of the marketplace, and we've seen less demand. It is actually something that we will be offering later on. Okay. All right, so one last question before we go into AMD. Question, it says, update the BIOS. The MAI version remains the updated one even if you roll back to an older BIOS. What is the impact if one rolls back BIOS version? I'm not sure exactly what you mean. Excuse me again. If what you mean is like, I guess you updated the MEI, but then you rolled back the UEFI, there shouldn't be any issues in that regard. The MEI firmware kind of handles different functionality. If you were rolling back the UEFI for specific, I don't know, situations where you had some very, very high level stability issue or something like that, which generally is unrealistic, especially for a formal release, maybe potentially for a beta release, but that's pretty rare for a formal release. And if that's the case, then definitely you would want to reach out to our service and support team. But that's fine. You can essentially have those two differential, right? Where you can have that newer MEI firmware and you can have that older UEFI, right? Keep in mind though, for like boards like the Extreme, one of the really cool things about the Extreme compared to something, let's say like the Prime series, or even something like the Hero versus like the Hero to the Extreme and the Apex, and it's one of the reasons why I love running like the Apex, is that it has the dual BIOS design. So that means that you can actually run two different full UEFI builds. So you could run like 1220 here, and then you could run like 1206 if you wanted to, and you can actually fully switch between the two. Unlike some competitors which say that they have a dual BIOS design, it's not really a dual BIOS design, they just have a backup ROM, where we actually have true tool independent BIOSes. So you can actually have different builds for different BIOSes. All right. Pretty cool. All right, guys, let's go ahead and now jump into the AMD side. So on the AMD side of the fence, there's been quite a number of updates that have also been released for the AM5 platform, and these are going to be for both AM4 and AM5 based motherboards. Now on the AM5, let's go ahead and bring up actually another Prime board. So we'll bring up the Prime X670E Pro Wi-Fi, take for instance. We've pretty much released this out for the entirety of all AM5 based motherboards, so it doesn't matter which AM5 board you got, you should be pretty much in this segmentation to be able to have access to this firmware. And AMD went ahead and issued this new AGESA right here, which you can see 1007B. And 1007B really has a big focus at actually exposing and adding in new portions to the MRC, so the memory reference code. And what this has allowed for is essentially more tuning opportunities, actually improvements in certain situations for certain DRAM overclocked configurations, including one DPC and one SPC and two DPC, two SPC configurations. What do you mean by that? Like, hey, if you guys are asking me, JJ, I don't know what one DPC, one SPC means. Excuse me. All I mean by that is essentially 2 DIMMs versus 4 DIMMs. Okay, so one SPC is 1 slot per channel, and then one DPC, 1 DIMM per channel. If you move to 2, that's 2 slots per channel, 2 DIMMs per channel, right? So when users are generally thinking about like, do I have 4 DIMMs or do I have 2 DIMMs, right? That's the more technical phrasing, is 1 DPC, 1 SPC. There is also a factor that you have to account for, which is what's called memory rank. So there's single rank memory and there's dual rank memory. The easiest way to generally understand this is density. If you're running 16 gigabytes or the new 24 gigabytes, those are all single rank. If you move into like 64 gigabyte kits, which are like 32 gigabyte DIMMs, then you're talking about dual rank based memory. And dual rank memory is always going to overclock to a lower degree than single rank memory. And that's important because, again, if we actually look at AMD's specification information here, you'll actually see that they have something that's called the AMD Pore Table. We can go ahead and actually enlarge this a little bit. Well, I already had it at 150%, so you should hopefully be able to see that. But you can see right here, 2 by 1, so that means 2 by single rank is 5200. And a 4 by 1, though, you can actually see a 4 by 1, which moves to that 2 DIMMs per channel, 2 slots per channel, is actually a much lower divider. Some people think inherently like 6000 MT is readily achievable, but start to think about the delta. The delta between 52 to 6000, it is there, but it's not massive, right? If you go in by dividers, the next nominal divider would be 5600, and then it would be 6000. Although there are a lot of steps actually between there. You could go like 52, you could go like 54, 56. There's actually more dividers that are in there. But in terms of the memory kits you purchase, it's generally like a 5200, 56, and then like a 6000, right? But you could actually see here from a 4-DIMM configuration, regardless of whether you're talking about single rank or dual rank, it's actually quite a bit of a jump up, right? So 36 then would even be moving to like even a very conservative speed of like 4800 is still actually below this default speed. The cool thing is that there's just been further improvements, and overall as a whole, you've already been able to have very good overclocking, but there were, of course, recent changes. AMD previously issued an update that was for all AM5 motherboard manufacturers that limited the max SoC voltage. So the SoC voltage is essentially kind of your memory controller voltage, and the maximum that is defined and allowed by motherboard manufacturers is 1.3 volts. The reason why this can be important is actually some overclock kits like 6000, 62, 6400, and higher frequency kits may actually require a higher SoC voltage to be able to reach stability outside of manual tuning. So this gets a little bit more complicated, but either which way, the great thing is that if you are maybe somebody that's looking for a little bit more margin, you're willing to kind of tune, you want a little bit higher than performance, and let's just say pure stock performance, 6000 was already readily available and stable for quite some time, but these new UEFI releases further improve the overall OC experience. So if we go back over to, I guess, this board, you can see right here, the release you would be looking for would be like this one. For this board, it's 1636, and you want that AGESA 1007B. And again, this is for all of the AM5 motherboards pretty much across the board. If we go ahead and take a look at some values right here, let's bring up some performance numbers that I've gone ahead and done a little bit of testing with. And I can show you right here some results. So this one's actually a pretty cool result. So we just talked actually about 4 DIMM configurations. This one you can see is actually a full 64 gigabyte 4 DIMM configuration running at 6000 MT with full stability. So this is actually pretty cool because while I wouldn't say that this is going to be 100% the guarantee that you should expect this, you can see that it is actually possible. And this even on one of our more entry boards. The Prime Series board, it's a very solid board, but technically from a PCB design, it's not going to be as high end in terms of the, let's say, low loss PCB that we would have on something like our Crosshair Hero motherboard, which has even better kind of signal margin and overall DRAM overclocking performance. Okay. We can also see right here kind of a secondary test, not only fully passing the OCCT test, but also fully passing an hour of stress testing with AIDA64. Again, that 6000 with that nice dense memory configuration, essentially a 64 gigabyte 4 DIMM configuration, right? We can also see even going a little bit higher. This is actually 6200 running with full stability as well. And then I think over here, actually, that was a different test. That's actually from something somebody else was asking me about. They were asking me about the difference between MCE and non-MCE and kind of temperatures. So I was showing them something. So you don't need to worry about that. But overall, that gives you just a little bit of perspective and feedback. Again, guys, you can download all those corresponding UEFI updates. I've gone ahead and shared over that information with Jake on the community side. So we should have a recap within the PCDIY group, which will kind of just confirm for you all the boards that have seen those updates resident to the Intel and to the AMD side in the not too distant future. So if you're interested, check out that post in the PCDIY group. If you guys are checking us out for the first time and you've never been part of the group, the link is in the description if you're checking us out on YouTube or you're checking us out on Facebook. And if you're checking us out on Twitter or somewhere else, then, you know, just Google ASUS PCDIY group. It should come up and you can check out one of the featured post announcements. All right, guys. All right. So very cool. That goes ahead and take care of that in terms of our UEFI BIOS announcements. So we're good to go. All right, guys. So next up, let's go ahead and now jump into next update, and give me a second here. And I'm going to quickly go ahead and get, I think, the Radeon GPUs just quickly kind of out right just at the top right here. Let's just quickly go ahead and touch on these new guys. And again, if everybody has any questions, feel free to go ahead and let me know. So this is a brand new product, of course, and if we talk about the series in the segment, right, we're going to be talking about graphics cards. So let's go ahead and quickly touch on these. And again, I know probably a lot of people are really excited about the monitors. Do not worry. We're going to 100% focus about those ROG Swift OLED series monitors, okay? But first up right here, we're going to go ahead and touch on, let me go ahead and actually, let me drop this one in here. And we'll bring this one up. So this is going to be, we'll do 7800 XT first. Yeah, let's go ahead and do that. Okay. All right, so this is going to be for the TUF Gaming Radeon 7800 XT. And we're going to have essentially two models for this one. And let's go ahead and bring this up right here. We will have the TUF Gaming Radeon RX 7800 XT. Very straightforward. It's going to look pretty similar to the current kind of, let's say, NVIDIA series, or even to the 7900 XT and the 7900 XTX in terms of the overall design. It is not the same, though, dimensionally in terms of the overall kind of the volume and the sizing. I know some people sometimes get confused. They think it's just the same thing, and it's not. Slot-wise, this is a 2.96 slot, so it's actually quite a bit smaller, and it's actually a bit more compact than, say, like something like the 7900 XTX and the 7900 XT. Okay, so dimensionally it's a little bit more compact. There's also going to be just kind of different designs from kind of generation to generation. This is using the latest ID design, so you have a really nice metal shroud. The internal shroud actually also has some nice things that sometimes people don't realize, such as like an internal what we call ribbing or frame system. The frame system is there to actually add kind of rigidity and stability across the entirety of the card. This helps to mitigate, PCB cracking. It can actually also help to mitigate card sag, and overall just structurally gives you a more kind of rigid card and really nice fit and feel. The card feels really nicely kind of put together in terms of its overall construction. You'll notice also some other design points that we have here, such as we have a nice exposed venting based design, full backplate implementation. We also did open up this half to a little bit more of a recessed area here. So when you're kind of running your cables, if you, depends, let me know in the chat, are you guys the one that you like to pass the cable directly down, or you like to pass the cable back over the card? Depending on kind of how you run, here you just have a little bit more opening space to be able to go ahead and run that pathway in, so you're good to go in that respect. And you also do have your PCI power monitoring that's also going to be present on the card as well. Okay, 2 RGB lighting zones, which has pretty much been the standard for TUF Gaming based graphics cards. So it doesn't matter whether you put the card kind of vertically, you're going to have a little bit of RGB accent, and if you put it horizontally, you have a little bit of an RGB accent as well. Great looking card. It's going to be cool, quiet, and very performant. In the not too distant future, you'll of course see reviews popping up, and we'll have actually more information that we'll also share directly within the PCDIY group regarding this card. But I think it's going to be a great choice for those of you that are going to be looking maybe for an upgrade to a modern Radeon based graphics card. You got those nice things in terms of RDNA 3 based graphics, all those of course AMD feature centric technologies like FSR, super resolution support, noise suppression, and some other cool stuff that they've kind of baked in terms of the chipset, right? Like the Brilliance engine in terms of the actual resolution support, as well as items like AV1 encoding and decoding support. So that's the 7800 XT. Now, first is going to be that we are also going to have a white edition. So pretty cool, guys. If you are interested in a white variant, the first time ever that we've offered a white offering under our TUF Gaming lineup, where historically we've had white models for ROG STRIX, and then we have also seen the introduction of white models that we've had under our dual series, but this is the first time. Now, I do want to preface this isn't necessarily going to be something you're going to consistently see within the TUF Gaming lineup, although we do have other TUF Gaming components that have added in an alternate colorway, such as our chassis, both the GT501 and the GT502. The TUF Gaming fan, the TUF F120, is offered in black and white. Those chassis are offered in kind of black and white, and so here we also will offer black and white. This will be a limited production run, though, so that does mean that it will not be sustained throughout the entirety of the life cycle of the 7800 XT. So that does mean that if you're interested in terms of its availability, I would recommend that once it starts to go to the channel, if you want to pick it up, you're going to want to pick it up, because it can be similar to situations where we see some users that, like maybe they were looking at something like an Apex motherboard or a Formula or an Extreme, and they weren't aware that those were limited edition. So meaning essentially once we sell out of our production inventory, then those cards or those products essentially are no longer available. Now that will not affect the warranty. Our warranty will still be the same. It's a 3-year warranty. Everything resident to the support site, none of that is effective. It's just the overall production output. Okay, but I think it's a great looking card. What do you guys think? Do you like the ID design? I think that the white aesthetic looks fantastic. I know Justin is joining us here, and Justin has actually done this type of mod himself to our graphic cards, where he's taken a black variant and made it essentially white. But of course here you just have that nice fit, finish, and polish right out of the box, so that if you want a white variant, you're going to be able to get it. So that is going to be the TUF Gaming 7800 XT. All right, guys. So next up there, let's go ahead and just round things out here with the 7700 XT, and pretty much it's going to look exactly the same. It's not going to look any different, and that's because effectively it's going to be the same. So from the overall kind of design dimensions, elements, there's no difference there. So it's still a 2.96 space slot card, right? Still metal based shroud, right? The venting design, pretty much everything's the same. And if I didn't note, right, both of these, neither one of them, just like the actual 7900 series, you don't have 12-volt high power connectors. They're still using legacy PCIe power connections, so very straightforward. So regardless of pretty much whatever power supply you have, as long as you're meeting the wattage and amperage requirements, then you're going to be good to go. So that is going to be the TUF Gaming RX 7700 XT. Now, I do again want to preface that only the 7800 XT will come within the white variant, okay? 7700 XT will not have a white variant, all right? Let me go ahead and quickly just see what some thoughts or feedback there on that TUF Gaming white graphics card, all right? Hey, Johnny Roman, any giveaways here? Not today. I think we just finished rounding out our Gamescom based giveaway. So last week's stream, we actually covered, I think, like 3 or 4 different giveaways. So you definitely want to be watching our streams weekly, as well as actually part of our PCDIY group or following our social channels for finding out about the kind of all the different giveaway opportunities we have. And like we talked about at the beginning of the stream, hopefully maybe as early as next month, we'll start to be kicking off some even more opportunities specifically for our PCDIY group in terms of giveaways. But we generally I'd say almost about every month do have some type of giveaway opportunity across one of our channels. So if you're following us, it gives you the opportunity to pick up some cool hardware. All right. Dead BC77 is I might have or have not painted my 3090 Strix white, right? Yeah, definitely. I know there was a lot of people that actually did that right there. Michael notes, he goes, looks fantastic in white. I really love it. Somebody going, now if there was only TUF AM5 motherboards, it's just not realistic. It's not going to happen, right? We can't make white variants for every single cross product, and we've already offered, that's the reason why we have, you know, like the Prime series, the Prime X670 boards, those are in white, right? We have ROG STRIX -A boards, which are also in white, right? And so, you know, we try to balance out making sure that we offer a portfolio. Part of the value add of also, I'd say, even kind of ROG is that it has a larger kind of generally dual portfolio perspective of offering, always a focus to have kind of a black and a white offering. Where we're TUF Gaming, it's a little bit just kind of more, we're looking at kind of feedback from the community and trying to also offer up maybe a little bit more accessible options at certain times, because TUF Gaming is going to be coming in generally at a lower price point. But ultimately, if you want the most aesthetic choice, that is where ROG is. We're definitely taking that as a focus, right? Where we know we want to have a very wide portfolio for a white set of options. So that's the reason why under ROG, we have white everything. We have white keyboards, we have mice, we have white monitors, might have white graphics cards, white motherboards, right? We have an entire kind of ecosystem that we've defined to be able to do that, right? So overall, looks like the feedback is pretty good there. Hey, Ace Sean is joining us. Fantastic, man. Yeah, and speaking, I guess, of white, right? If you guys are looking for 2 great coolers that might be in white, right, then you definitely should check out, you know, the Ryujin 3 in white, which you can get right now. And you can also get the Ryu 3, right? Both of those are actually featuring the latest generation 8th gen base pump, right? And you can get them in white and they look great. So if you guys aren't aware of those, let's go ahead and just quickly show those quickly because they both are available right now. So let me go ahead and bring those up really quick. And then we're going to get into our next products here. So let me go ahead and bring those up right here. So yeah, Ryujin 3, right? You guys can get it. Beautiful, of course, AIO. And we've already done a full live stream on it where we've covered on this, although I think we're going to be doing a performance live stream on this, hopefully in the next couple of weeks. So I'll actually kind of be comparing the prior models to the models. I'll maybe do multiple CPUs. I'm thinking I might do like 13900K, 12900K, even 11, and even like maybe like a 10900K. So doing like 4 different CPUs, kind of what's the experience, MCE, not MCE, like overclocking, kind of what you can kind of get in terms of your overall experience. But keep in mind that even if you go with, you know, one of the units, it's only like 240 millimeter, like what I've got right here. This is running my 13900K and it does it entirely fine. There's a misconception a lot of times that you have to go to a very, very high-end kind of cooler just to be able to have a good experience, and that's not accurate. It really all comes down to your workload. But this unit looks fantastic. You know, new screen, which of course has more memory, higher refresh rate, 60 frames a second, right? Longer tube, thicker radiator, daisy chain magnetic fans. If you want to go with the circular housing, we have the, of course, the Ryu, which has the anime matrix pixel display. Looks fantastic. And again, both of these are 8th gen based pump design. So cool, quiet, performant, and very reliable. Great long-term warranty, so you don't have to worry about anything. So those are 2 great options for you guys if you're interested in terms of AIOs. All right, so that takes care of us in terms of our GPU. So again, just as a recap, let me go ahead and just bring these up one last time, and we'll go through that and just recap our GPUs here. So give me 1 second. Bring those back up again, and we'll move into our next updates from Gamescom. All right. So again, 7700 XT, 7800 XT in white, and 7800 XT in black, right? So good to go, guys. All right, so let's go ahead and jump into our next updates. All right, so we're gonna go to, I guess, okay, we'll let people decide. Do we want to do the Z790 refresh motherboards, or do we want to do the monitors? I'm gonna give you the choice. So let's give it, while I take a quick drink here, I'm going to give you the opportunity to be the arbiter of what we're going to cover first. So let me know. Just put in the chat, motherboard or monitor, whichever one you want. And starting now, we'll give it 10 seconds. Let's go ahead and see which one we go with, okay? I think we're almost there. All right. All right, let me go ahead and see what we've got here. We got monitor, motherboard, monitors, monitors. All right, I think monitors. Yeah, monitors probably edged it out, right? Okay, so let's go ahead and oh man, it's pretty close. I mean, it almost was 50-50, but I think the monitors, I don't know. Oh, at the end, let's go. we're gonna go with monitors. I don't know. We had a last couple of motherboards in there that might have just slotted in, so it might be like a 60-40 split. But we're gonna go ahead and let's go first with our monitors here. I know a lot of people have been really excited and waiting for these. So again, guys, yeah, these are gonna be new products. Now it's important to keep in mind, right, with these new products, these are essentially new product introductions, right? So there's a difference between essentially what we generally refer to as let's say a channel release. So a channel release means that generally within like 10 to 30 days, it's going to actually be available for you to purchase. So I could go to like Newegg or Amazon, Micro Center, the ASUS store, and be able to actually purchase it. I can also give you the confirmation on MSRP pricing and full specifications because we're actually launching the product. This is an introduction, which means that it still could be, you know, months away. And specifically for actually some of these monitors, they actually they're not going to be released until the very early part. So early part of Q1, maybe for 2024, for example. So do keep that in mind. So part of the information that we provide is, let's say, initially tentative in nature. There may be certain things that probably won't change. There may be some elements that change. And as always, we recommend that just make sure, keep it tuned to our weekly stream as well as our PCDIY group for the most up-to-date information as we get closer and closer to the release for these products, okay? So let's get ready to jump into it. We've got 3 new monitors specifically in terms of our ROG Swift OLED series. So let me go ahead and bring these up right here and jump into it here, okay? So in terms of this kind of new lineup, you can see that we've essentially got 3 models here that we're going to be focusing in on, right? We've got a 32-inch 4K 240 hertz, right? So that's an ultra-high refresh rate monitor. This is the really exciting one. A lot of people actually didn't even know we were the only manufacturer on the market that actually already had a 32-inch 4K OLED monitor, and we've actually had it for quite some period of time. It also uses a little bit of a different panel. It uses what's referred to as a pure RGB based panel, as opposed to, and generally kind of your other OLED, you usually have what's called a WOLED, which means it has a white subpixel, or you have QD OLED technology, right? And it wasn't utilizing either one of those. It was under our ProArt branding, but a fantastic choice if you really wanted something that was 4K and 32-inch. We already had that. But now, specifically under our gaming lineup, and for those that really want that high refresh rate, along with, of course, that low pixel response that you would have honestly gotten in either monitor, right? Even if you would have got that ProArt monitor, it still would have had low pixel response because that's inherent to OLED technology. We're going to have that 240 hertz. So that is going to be the guy right there in the center. That's the PG32UCDM. And we're going to get into that in a little bit. We then have a 34-inch, so that steps into the ultra-wide category, and again, that's going to be coming in at 240 hertz. Going to be those for looking for a little bit more expansive experience, a little bit more immersion with a moderate, I'd say a moderate, minimal curve, right? It's not a heavy, aggressive curve. I think it's a nice balance there to still actually align for a pretty reasonable level of kind of productivity. I think productivity is still generally best maximized on a flat panel, but you know, with all of these displays, really the first and foremost focus really is towards gaming and then content consumption. And then for productivity, you know, we would still probably actually recommend that you should be looking at, you know, the expansiveness of what we offer in terms of our traditional LCD-based product. Then moving into the 49-inch, you can see right there too, right? Then we move into, of course, a much wider, much more immersive ultra-wide, right? And that's going to be at 144 hertz, right? So some of the consistent points that you're going to definitely see that we're going to be talking about are going to be elements such as our display widget center, USB connectivity that will be present on that. Although for the vast majority of you, you're going to probably be using DP, maybe some of you using HDMI, right? But we will have some other cool things that we'll talk about, like uniform brightness, our new smart KVM technology, and then there's hallmarks, things like the ROG threaded mount at the top of the monitor, which allows you to easily attach accessories. But why don't you guys let me know in the chat right now, what are you using for your display connection? Are you using DisplayPort? Are you using HDMI? Or actually you using USB-C? Or do you have two devices connected to your monitor? So you actually would use something like picture-in-picture or picture-by-picture, which these monitors do support, okay? So those are the three displays that we are going to be taking a look at. All right, so let's get ready to jump into the first guy right here. So we're going to go with the PG32UCDM. All right, so let's go first up with that one. Let me go ahead and jump down right here. Okay, so here we go. And I'll go ahead and drop that because it's a little bit redundant, because we can see right there that we do have the title, right? So that is going to be the ROG Swift OLED PG32UCDM. So that is going to be a 32-inch QD OLED, so that's a second generation QD OLED. If you're not familiar with what the QD represents, right, is that is the quantum dot technology. And so really the key benefit that you're going to have with the quantum dot technology is going to be able to maximize, of course, color volume and the actual brightness for those actual colors. A lot of people actually will generally find that in QD OLED, they'll find that the punchiness for, let's say, the saturation of those colors is very, very, very present, even to a higher degree than standard, let's say, WOLED based displays. Now, just like pretty much what we've done across all of our ROG OLED based displays, we've really been known to be kind of the benchmark leader, really offering kind of best in class experience, especially when it comes to SDR and to HDR brightness. Part of that comes through what we refer to as our ROG cooling design. This can be in different ways and shapes, forms. Sometimes it might be through the implementation of a more specialized heatsink, through specialized voltage optimizations that we'll implement, or through maybe supplemental materials that we'll also be kind of touching on a little bit here. That ultimately just helps to make sure that the, whether it's at a percentage of a window or a full scheme brightness, right, we're generally going to offer a better experience than competitors. And that was clearly seen. Like a great example of that right now is there are, I believe, 5 other manufacturers that are producing a 27-inch OLED, and not any one of those manufacturers are actually even close to what the ROG Swift 27-inch OLED is offering in terms of SDR or HDR brightness, compared to even competitors like LG. We're offering a significant, and by I mean significant, it is demonstrably measurable, in excess of 20 to, in some cases, actually closer to maybe 40% increases. So it is a significant improvement in terms of the overall brightness that we can offer. And critically, I think for a lot of people, the brightness is an important part. It helps to add that dynamic range in terms of your HDR experience, but also I think even for depending on ambient lighting situations and for SDR usage, having a brighter display can be something that you find actually useful to just more easily be able to see the display. In terms of your resolution, of course, it's 4K resolution, so 3840 by 2160, 240 hertz. One of the nice things about OLED-based technology is that it inherently almost offers a what you would call like a variable overdrive experience, and this means that the motion clarity experience is very consistent with OLED in terms of its pixel response, regardless of whether you're at 144, whether you're at 200, whether you're at 165, 140. And that's important because it means that you have a very kind of consistent motion clarity experience across the refresh range. Because the truth is, you might not maybe have a GPU that can help you to actually run at 4K at 240 hertz, right? Even with something like, our flagship 48 or 4090 graphics card or 7900 XTX, you might not be playing games at this refresh rate and this resolution, right? Depends on the game engine. Game engine really is going to be the critical part, right? And the settings that you're playing, right? Because Cyberpunk is very different than Overwatch, which is different to Diablo, then that's different to Forza, and Call of Duty, and that's different than Company Heroes, right? They all are going to have different experiences. In terms of the smart KVA technology, this is a pretty cool technology. Just allows for kind of a more seamless experience where essentially we can take advantage of the integrated hub here and different display inputs to be able to kind of seamlessly go from one device to the other, right? And you don't have to actually go through any type of configurations. You just can kind of move over the mouse and it'll automatically take care of that. The USPD means that this is USB power delivery. So while definitely I think probably the most of you are probably focusing on having desktop connectivity for, let's say, a PCDIY desktop system, right? Of course, if you're maybe utilizing this with something like a laptop, it can provide that value where you can have essentially up to that 90 watts of power that can be provided to that device, so that it can also provide power to it. The cooling design is self-explanatory, and the threaded mount, we'll probably maybe go to a secondary image right here, but the threaded mount is a connector right here. And essentially all that means is that you have the ability with the threaded mount to be able to mount different types of accessories. So you can put stuff like a camera, a microphone, a light. You can actually put even a second monitor. You can take another monitor, like one of our mobile series displays, and mount it on top of there with the threaded mount. So that's pretty cool, pretty flexible in terms of that regard. I think I have a couple of supplemental images on that, guys, so let me go ahead and just bring it up. They're going to look pretty similar, but I will show them to you guys. So here you guys can see just beautiful, really nice thin display. Now keep in mind with QD OLED, there's no inherent polarizer in the same way that there is for sometimes some other display products. This doesn't necessarily mean that it's glossy, but it's a bit different than, let's say, traditional kind of, let's say, WOLED, which might have like where you would refer to maybe having something like glossy and then something having like anti-reflective or kind of more matte coating. I'd say it's a little bit kind of in that more moderate space. There are, though, some factors that have to be considered at how you actually have direct, let's say, light when it's presented actually onto the panel surface, that is something you have to account for, that in some ways actually having a polarizer like on an LCD or on a WOLED could actually be advantageous if you're going to have a heavy amount of light that might shine there. So that is something, again, that you have to evaluate. And it's part of the reason why we keep our product portfolio quite diverse, right? Is that there's different monitors for different people depending on their environment, their usage, their setups, you know, to kind of pick the right monitor that works best for you in your environment, your use case, your system configuration, your kind of workflow, right? We have that cool large stand. Now this stand, while it does look quite large, it is quite angled and recessed, and one of the kind of value adds that we have within that perspective is that it doesn't take up a lot of immediate that foreground space, so you can really bring kind of your keyboard and mouse very up, right? And I think I have a secondary photo that we have from the desk setup that I'll show you in terms of how that looks right there. So that's pretty cool. You'll also see right here in this center where you might be like, how does the button display interface work? There is a rear mounted button on the back, which allows you to have the joystick for on-screen display, but these monitors will all support our display widget center technology, which means that you can actually do all the OSD control in Windows. You don't physically have to touch the monitor. For me, I much rather prefer using display widget. I think it's a much more seamless experience, right? But here you can kind of see that little joystick right there. It's in the back. It's pretty straightforward as far as understanding, hey, that's what I would connect to. And you also do have some integrated cable management with this being a pass-through. So when your cables go through, you would connect them there, you'd run them through here, and then they go into there, right? So nice, just streamlined, but great looking display. That is going to be, again, the PG32UCDM. Let me see right here if I do have a setup shot for this monitor. So give me one moment right here. I think I do for this one. Yes, I do have it. Okay. So this is actually from directly on site there. And you can actually see right here how it actually looks. So you can see here we've got our keyboard. I think this is the ROG ASUS keyboard. You can actually see how close you can get there because the actual stand itself doesn't actually angle forward, right? It actually flares out more kind of horizontally to the sides. So it does leave you with quite a bit of space available so that if you really kind of want to push up your keyboard, have more space to move in your mouse, you do have a lot of room in that regard, okay? So that is going to be the ROG Swift OLED PG32UCDM. Anybody asking about price? I don't have any price point for you as of yet. As always, make sure to keep it tuned, and we'll have that information for you once we get closer to actual channel availability. Okay, let me go ahead and quickly see if there's any quick questions, although I think I've probably covered everything that I can detail on that monitor, right? So Paskowitz notes is definitely end game level. I think it's a fantastic monitor. I would agree. I don't know for me if it's 100%, you know, end game. You know, right now, actually, I have an OLED and I have an LCD, and I split back and forth because a large amount of the workflow that I do, I still prefer the even better pixel sub-pixel structure. Although with the second generation QD OLED panel there has been improvements to the actual sub-pixel structure. So historically, OLED has not offered as sharp and as clear text. And this is an area that this panel will offer a notable experience compared to prior generations, especially being a bit more competitive, I'd say, with LCD. So for me, that's been critical because I do a lot, right? I'm reading text, you know, on websites, in forum posts, in community sites, and social media channels, my email, all those things. And I find that very, very important because when I'm not gaming, I'm doing all those other stuff. Also keep in mind that like color gamut can actually still even be higher on LCDs than it can be on OLEDs, although OLEDs, the best OLEDs can definitely be very good. All ROG Swift monitors are factory calibrated, so they have a very, very high standard in that regard. But keep in mind there are still factors even with our ROG cooling design and the integrated burn-in mitigation features that we have built in. There is still going to be maybe some users, depending on your workflow, that you may want to prefer the kind of the proven reliability of an LCD-based display. And even from outright motion clarity, you know, especially with monitors like we have with our ROG Swift 360 Hz, 240 for 1440p with ULMB2, the motion clarity there would even be higher than it would be on something like an OLED. So something to keep in mind. Dead BC is noting on a dark room. I don't know what you mean by like dark room. If you can give me a little bit more feedback on what you mean by dark room, I can try to see if I can answer that for you. Stardust is asking about the DP interface. You know, it's not really relevant. The reality is DP 1.4 with DSC gives us the flexibility there, and we already has HDMI 2.1. You know, and so HDMI 2.1 is even only on the most recent base graphics cards. For the vast majority of users, they're actually going to be using the DP standard. So that's where the focus is at. And you have to consider that we're actually, to my knowledge, we're the first manufacturer that even has a DP 2.1 monitor on the market, right? We recently released the UQ-XR, which has DP 2.1 and HDMI 2.1. But the reality is that when you talk about the design and development pipeline for a monitor, sometimes a spec, as you're starting to see it approach into the market becoming more prevalent, that's not when it's really relevant to us from a design perspective, because it already could have been that monitor was in a pipeline for development for the last 9 to 10 to 11, 12 months. And we have to account for different factors such as the validation timeline, the firmware tuning, just, you know, there's so many different aspects that go into the design and development to the product. So sometimes just the timing doesn't transition. This is actually the same thing that even happened with HDMI 2.1, where some people go, why doesn't that have HDMI 2.1 and why did it only have HDMI 2.0? And then there's other pieces like whether or not certain controllers or certain certain components within the monitor actually support that. So you have certain things like a T-Con and scaler, which are part of the actual monitor. And take, for instance, like the current NVIDIA G-Sync module doesn't support like HDMI 2.1. So we have like our PG32UQX. It's a fantastic monitor, but it doesn't have HDMI 2.1, but it's because that NVIDIA module doesn't have support for that. So that inherently means that you're limited at, but it still brings about many more value points, which I go for me, since we can already reach the resolution and the refresh rate through DisplayPort, you don't necessarily really need that 2.1, right? Because you then still get the advantages of, let's say, more advanced variable overdrive performance, right? That G-Sync module is affording you, right? So we always are kind of looking at things from a holistic perspective. There's a lot of factors that you kind of have to evaluate, right? Steve Michael's noting, will they support DP2.1? No, but again, it's not relevant to the conversation. We can hit the target, right? Like I said, with DP 1.4 or HDMI 2.1, right? There, you're going to be able to hit that. So you're good to go, okay? HDR 400, correct. That is right now a tentative target specification that is being reached to in that respect, right? Which HDR cert are being used? Right, yeah, so it will depend, right? So that for this first model, right, it will be a VESA display HDR 1000, right? So that will be the specification. And then, as Paskowitz also noted, it's HDR 400 to black, right? Because it's also OLED, okay? And then Michael last asking is QD OLED is also set to work for text. Actually, it depends, right? First generation QD OLED, it would actually not be. It would actually be, I'd say, far less in experience, even compared to WOLED, because it had a triangular subpixel structure. The new structure is also still triangular in nature, but there's been a, let's say, revision to actually how it's presented there, and allows for a much, much better level of text clarity. I would still say that the overall PPI and the text sharpness on LCD can be superior, and that somewhat depends on what you're going for. Like right now, the gold standard probably for text sharpness and text clarity is in 27-inch 4K LCD. They are absolutely the gold standard in terms of, if you really care about just it looking super crisp, it's hard to beat right now. And even these monitors will not beat up there, but this will still be a significant improvement that if you definitely do have a focus to want to be kind of gaming and also consider text utilization here, then the QD OLED will definitely offer a notable improvement in that respect, okay? Let's go into our second display in terms of this mix here. So our next one is we're going to go into the PG34WCDM. So that's going to be going into an ultra wide. I'm going to give you the on-site image first, and then we'll go into the stat image right there. So let me go ahead and bring this one up right here. All right, guys. So this is going to be the ultra wide right here. Again, you can see that pretty much dimensionally it's going to look very, very similar. This is going to be 34 inches, 240 hertz, and this is going to be OLED. Now, this is not going to be a QD OLED. This is actually a W OLED. Okay, so again, keep in mind that when we're talking about these OLEDs, there are going to be differences between W OLED and between QD OLED. In terms of, though, a lot of the core features, they're all going to be very similar. It has that same kind of flared out design, which again, you can see that you've got a lot of space that you can move up the keyboard and the mouse. Beautiful display, works well. And even here, you can see with a lot of overhead lighting, you can still see actually how it handles overall reflections actually pretty well in this image. So I think this is actually a nice image to be able to actually show you. It's actually a real image as opposed to just kind of like a rendered shot. But let's go ahead and go to our informational image here so that we can get a little bit more of those high level points on what this one is going to be bringing to the table. So for those of you who are going to be looking for something a little bit more immersive, right, and also probably a little bit easier to run in terms of resolution, right, we're going to go with this 34-inch OLED 3440 by 1440 base display. So this is of course not your 3840 by 2160, which is on that 4K side. So here we are going to that ultra wide resolution. You have a minimal curve, 800 curve, right, 240 hertz. Same thing though with WO, just like the QD OLED, you have that sub 1 millisecond response time, and you have a very consistent pixel response time to give you that great experience that nominally, like for LCDs, we would talk about something like variable overdrive performance. How consistent is that experience in terms of like undershoot and overshoot and motion clarity at 240 to 200 to 160, you know, to 140 to 120 hertz. Here you're going to have a very nice consistent motion clarity experience throughout that motion, throughout that refresh rate range. So that's the same. The brightness though is even going to be higher here, where we're going to be looking at 1300 nits, right? So compared to the prior display we looked at, that was going to be a maximum of that 1000 nits, and here we go to 1300 nits. Okay. And then also we have G-Sync compatibility. That is different, of course, than let's say like G-Sync Ultimate certification, which would mean the unit would have to have an NVIDIA G-Sync FPGA module. So that is not, they are two different things. So do keep that in mind, but you will be able to enable G-Sync and have that support. Compatibility is also important because it means that it goes through additional levels of validation, not only with ASUS, but also directly with NVIDIA. The Smart KVM is the same feature that we already discussed. The USB is the same thing we discussed. And the ROG cooling design, as I noted, is really just how we approach actually optimizing, like I said, the thermal management for the panel. Like I said, whether it's through the implementation of heatsink, or it's even through the implementation of like a graphene material throughout the panel, right, to be able to more optimally keep the actual OLED substrate at a lower temperature. The lower that you can generally keep the temperature for the substrate, it not only allows you to get to higher brightness levels, but it can also help to reduce the likelihood for burn-in, which is the way we help to kind of offset some of that, alongside with other things like voltage optimization, as well as integrated burn-in protection mechanisms that are inside the OSD. So that's going to be like pixel refreshing or like logo protection or things along those lines. All of these monitors have that technology built in, so they are built in already there. You don't have to worry about kind of enabling them. It is already present within the OSD. Okay, so that is going to be the PG34WCDM. All right. Let me quickly see if there's any quick questions on that guy right there. And I think I have some secondary images for that one. So let me go ahead and bring the secondary images for that one up. They're going to be pretty similar, so not going to worry about that one too much. But here we can see right here, this is going to be for that beautiful display. Like I said, nice minimal curve, right, with that 800R. And I think it looks great. What do you guys think? I think it's a great looking display. It's even got that cool. And there you can actually see what we were talking about with that threaded mount connector. Again, that's that connector, which is pretty cool because if you wanted to put like a little bit of a mount on there to have then like a microphone, a camera, lights. We get people that have taken like our XG portable monitors and they'll put that on there. You can even get like a cold shoe adapter, mount that on there, and then have like two mounts. So you could have like a microphone and a light, you know, camera and a microphone and a light. You know, you can do a lot of different stuff. So pretty cool, pretty flexible. Okay. All right. Let me quickly see if there's any questions on that guy. He goes, great looking display. Thanks, Jack. I appreciate the feedback right there. All right. Hey, is that K-Man, man? I'm doing all right, man. Thank you for asking. Hopefully you're having a great Friday, and I hope that you have a safe and healthy Friday night and enjoy your weekend, man. But thanks for joining us here for the stream, right? So let's go ahead and jump into our third display here. So our third display is going to be for those that 34 is not big enough. It's not ultra wide enough for me. I need bigger, right? Okay, guys. Well, we're going to have you covered here with the ROG Swift OLED PG49WCD. We, of course, already recently released a actually LCD 49-inch that was also similarly in this ultra wide category right here, but this is going to be a big step up in terms of also the resolution right here. So again, on this model we're going to a 49-inch. This is again a quantum dot OLED as opposed to what we previously looked at, which was a WOLED, and then our first one that we took a look at, which was the second generation quantum dot panel right here. Here, again, we're looking at it in a resolution of 5120 by 1440. So this is a very expansive resolution. This would be outstanding. You know, I could imagine playing like Forza or something like this, or, you know, imagine like Cyberpunk or, you know, The Witcher. You know, something where you just have beautiful open world environments, which are really fun and engaging and really kind of dynamic, really gonna kind of be great on this. Always keep in mind with ultra wides though, right, is that not every game engine natively supports ultra wides. So that is one thing that sometimes I see users in the community kind of come back with and going like, I didn't know that it might look like that. And like sometimes there can be weird situations where like the HUD maybe is repositioned or it's not optimally considered for something like an ultra wide. So I would always recommend is that, you know, kind of think a little bit about what are you playing and do a little bit of kind of just comparative kind of research to see what maybe your favorite games are that you kind of enjoy, and seeing what sometimes people's experience might have been on an ultra wide to see if that's going to be the right fit for you. Okay. 144 hertz. Again, here we're going to have that very consistent motion clarity experience throughout the motion refresh range because of the pixel response. 1000 nits in terms of that brightness, right? All of them, I haven't noted it, but it's inherent to OLED technology. We're going to have outstanding contrast performance, right? When you talk about being able to go to that black, it's true black because of the self-emissive nature that you have, of course, with OLED based technology. That smart KVM, that USB PD, that ROG cooling design, right? And then of course that threaded mount, right? And everything else that we've talked about you can see is consistent there, right? The threaded mount connection, that rear kind of joystick, but again you also have the display widget center software that allows you to control everything in the OSD display in Windows. And one cool other thing on this one, if you notice, this threaded mount that you see right here, there's actually a USB port. So you can actually use that to supplementally power sometimes devices you're going to mount it on that threaded mount. So an example, maybe if you have like a microphone and the microphone maybe needs like USB power, you can plug that into that USB port so that you don't have to have like another cable that you're trying to run to somewhere else. So it's a pretty cool kind of just attention to detail there to kind of improve your overall experience. So that is going to be the PG49WCD. All right, so 3 monitors that we've got there lined up, and that's going to, of course, supplement already our current ROG Swift OLED lineup and ROG OLED lineup. So right now we already have a 27-inch OLED, and then we also have, of course, a 42-inch, and we have a 48-inch, right? So the 27-inch is 1440p, 240 hertz, and then the 42-inch and the 48-inch are 4K, and that's up to 138 hertz on each one of those. So overall, we'll have a total of 6. That's right, 6 different OLED-based offerings. So quite a number of actually offerings, and that's not even counting, let's say, like our mobile displays where we actually have mobile OLED-based displays as well. All right. Let me see right here. So Sean's going us some feedback is that this SimSport side of things will love the 49-inch for racing. Yeah, I would agree. I would love to see something like, you know, jump into some Forza or some, of course, some simulators, right? If you're in the AC side of the fence, right? You know, whatever it might be, right? I think, you know, because just the kind of the immersion that you have, especially with that periphery, right? That cockpit field of view, right? I'm sure it would be just awesome to be able to kind of see something like that, right? Yeah, so here also, Sean's giving some feedback as he goes, you know, Elden Ring, right, didn't have native ultra-wide support. And there's games that are like that, right? You will find that there are games that sometimes don't have. I mean, more modern game engines have generally started to implement usually that they will have ultra-wide support, but you do sometimes have outliers that are out there. There are sometimes community hacks or mods that are available that allow you to kind of tweak things and kind of help to enable ultra-wide. But then again, like I said, you can have weird things with like the HUD, or you can have it with the layout consideration. And so that's the reason why I always tell people when they're targeting a monitor, you know, at least create like a little bit of a checklist, you know, open up a doc file, right? And just, you know, kind of put, you know, what are the 10 games that you're playing right now? What are some stuff that you see coming down the pipe maybe in the next year that you think you're going to want to be interested in play, and just start to get a sense, do they have ultra wide support? And if you're somebody also that loves to still play older titles or titles from, you know, 3, 4, 5, 6 years ago, then that's even something that's also relevant too, because of course sometimes as you go to a different game engines and the older game engines, you might find that they don't have any type of ultra wide support, and then you're going to kind of be in a situation where you're not fully leveraging, of course, the totality of the display. And so that's where still kind of traditional aspect ratios are going to be outstanding. So that's the benefit of something, of course, like the 4K model, right? It's like it's going to work with everything pretty much across the bar, so you can have a really consistent experience, right? So also some nice feedback there. Love the diversity of the threaded feature. That's pretty cool. I like this. This might be my favorite comment so far. I think finger licking beautiful monitor designs, right? And Jack gives us a great looking monitor, right? Fantastic right there. So let's just see right here. I think one question from Michael. He goes, on all the beautiful monitors, love the design. Question, no desk connector so that the monitor can be short, direct connect, mounted and save space. Yes, I know what you're talking about. So let's go ahead and bring that up quickly right here. So one of the really kind of coolest accessories that we came out with for our ROG series of LCDs, not OLED based displays, was something that we actually called the ROG desk mount kit. And right now it's actually compatible with, I think, close to maybe like 30 ROG monitors. To my knowledge, we're the only manufacturer that has anything like this, but it's pretty cool. Instead of having to go with like a whole VESA mount solution, you can buy this accessory, and when you actually just take out the base of the monitor, you just take out the base and then you attach that to it, and then you can just do a C-clamp design directly to your desk, and you can still have nice ergonomic adjustment, including height, available to you. So you can like easily turn it, you can raise it up. You don't have to have a whole thing like on an arm and worry about it. Really, really simple, really, really easy to be able to work with. And you can see, like, you know, we support everything from 27-inch monitors, even up all the way to 49-inch base monitors for this desk mount kit. Right now, we do not have this type of accessory that has been designed for the OLED series monitors. It is something that we are evaluating, but I cannot tell you that we are going to guarantee have this type of accessory available for the new ID design. But it is something under design review, and I would hope that we can offer like a second generation version that would be compatible for that. But as of right now, again, this is kind of like a benefit. If you were to look at one of our LCDs, then you could get this ROG desk mount kit, right? So Connor right here, let's see, I think Connor's giving us some feedback right there. So Connor Johnson is that I have been using the ROG desk mount kit since launch. It is really a super high quality and makes my desk really clean. Yeah, I would agree. I mean, I have it on my desk setup, and I really absolutely just love this, right? That again, it just gives you the most amount of space, right? It's just really simple. It's really easy. You know, again, VESA mounts are not super complicated, but kind of just like getting in the back, threading in the screws, sometimes getting your arm, the variable quality of kind of arms. This is so much simpler. We're literally just kind of put it at the base, screw it in, and then you just do the C-clamp, you torque it in, and that's it. You're done. And it's really nice and clean and simple. And it does feel really meaty. It's a very actually heavy accessory. You'll take it out and you'll be like, wow, this is pretty heavy. But again, you know, for a lot of us, if we make an investment in a high-end monitor, we want to feel comfortable and confident that it's kind of being well held, right, in space. Man, thanks so much, Connor, for that feedback. I really appreciate you kind of letting them know about your experience there with the ROG desk mount kit. All right, so that takes care of the ROG Swift OLED monitor. So I think from there, we're going to move over into the motherboards, guys. We're going to jump into our Z790 refresh motherboards here. Again, though, if anybody has any other questions on something that we might have missed out there, but I think I hopefully covered everything on the monitor side there, feel free and let me know. Let me go ahead and just do this quick recap here, just as kind of a general recap. So before we move in, I will go ahead and just finish recapping the three monitors. So again, we're going to have the ROG Swift OLED PG32UCDM. Again, this will be 32-inch, second generation QD OLED, 4K, 240 hertz, 1000 nits peak HDR, that smart KVM, the USB PD up to 90 watts, the ROG cooling design, the threaded mount, the undermount joystick, right, which is on the rear, along with display widget center, which means that you have full OSD control in Windows. That means you don't have to physically even touch a knob. You can make actually adjustments to your on-screen display settings inside of Windows, okay? The next one is the 34-inch, right? So that's 34 and that's ultra wide, 3440 by 1440. 800R in terms of the curvature, same thing, 240 hertz, up to 1300 nits, decent compatibility, smart KVM, USB PD, and ROG cooling design, along with also still having the threaded mount, the rear joystick, and the display widget center. And then the 49-inch QD OLED as opposed to WOLED, 5120 by 1440, 144 hertz, 1000 nits, the KVM, USB PD, with USB-C, ROG cooling design, threaded mount, rear connector as well, excuse me, the rear joystick design, display widget center, right? So that covers us for the three. So let's go into our motherboards here. All right, so for this side, these are going to be our refresh series of motherboards. So we're going to have 3. Now, we may or may not have some more boards, so I'm just going to let you guys, as always, make sure to keep it tuned to the PCDIY channel and our streams, as well as to our PCDIY group for all the ins and outs. But for right now, I've got 3 awesome new boards to go ahead and give you guys a little bit of the insight on that we're going to have as part of our refresh. So right up here in the middle, we've got the ROG MAXIMUS Z790 Dark Hero. We then have the ROG STRIX Z790-A Gaming Wi-Fi 2, and then we have the TUF Gaming Z790 Pro Wi-Fi. So 3 models that we're going to quickly touch on. For the most part, though, if you really want to get a good breakdown of a lot of the features and functions, make sure to keep it tuned to an upcoming kind of first look preview or full in-depth live stream that we'll have that will cover these boards 100% in full detail. So this is just a little bit of a recap. And if you want to get a better sense of a kind of the full set of features that we have, our Z790 launch live stream, as well as our posts that we have in the PCDIY group and our Edge Up website would all be great sources that'll still get you come out like about 85% up to speed, minus some of the new things that we're doing specific to these boards. Okay, I see some questions that popped up in the chat. Don't worry, I'll pop back in there in a second. So let's go, and I'm gonna take a quick drink here and let me know which one should we talk about first: TUF Gaming, ROG STRIX, or MAXIMUS Hero. Let me know which one. 5 seconds. Let's go. All right, so looks like, yep, all right, we already got votes. So we're gonna go with the Hero first. So we're gonna touch on the Hero, and somebody already noted there, Wi-Fi 7 sounds awesome for these boards. That's right. Website up for these, not for all of them, Ernest, but I believe, yes, there's already kind of soft, what we call like soft pages. So I think the soft pages that already give you some of the basic specifications are already up. So you can go ahead and check that out. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and go first with the MAXIMUS. So let's take a look at the Dark Hero. All right, so here we guys go. This is going to be the ROG MAXIMUS Z790 Dark Hero board. I think it looks fantastic in terms of the ID design. Pretty similar to the last generation, although we have gone ahead and made a couple of tweaks in terms of the overall ID. I always like to show the RGB lighting on and off on the board. Part of the reason why is because actually from an ID perspective, and so what we just mean by the ID is the industrial design, we actually design our board specifically for lighting and without lighting. We actually don't kind of say it should only be with lighting. We want you to have a great design aesthetic that if you're somebody that doesn't want to run any RGB lighting, you just want to run in dark mode and turn everything off, the board should still look great, and it does. I think it looks really refined. It has some nice design accents to it that offer a little bit of individualization and definitely that ROG DNA and identity, but at the same time, if you do want to kind of have a little bit of pop and flare, that poly mode display design is really cool. I think it's a great looking design that we have. It's quite unique. No other manufacturer has anything like that, where, you know, our Strix boards have the acrylic, just kind of similar, kind of fixed logo. The poly mode has some more variants because you have different patterns that you can have available. And then of course on the Extreme boards, the Extreme of course have the most kind of comprehensive type of variability with the anime matrix display, right? But you can, of course, see a lot of the hallmarks of what we already did previously, which you have rich I/O, right? So you've got 4 USB, another 2 USB, so that's 6. That's 8. So 12 USB all on the back there. Of course, you've got Thunderbolt 4, USB 4 connectivity. None of these are legacy. These are all high-speed ports. So, of course, if you're somebody that cares about having a lot of high-speed based connectivity, this is going to be a board for you, okay? 2.5 gigabit based connectivity on here. HDMI, Wi-Fi 7, of course, is going to be on this board, and we're going to talk about a really cool new design that we have for this generation called our Q antenna feature, which is pretty cool, where we actually redesign the way that the antenna works, and it makes it not only simpler and faster, but actually more performant than prior generations. And then, of course, your multi-channel optical output. So all that is going to kind of be par for the course. Now, one thing that is going to change from the prior generation is that when we actually looked at kind of the slot layout configuration for this board didn't natively have PCIe Gen 5 M.2 SSD support. You had to actually do the Hyper M.2 add-in card, which came included with the motherboard, to then do a PCIe Gen 5 M.2 SSD. For this refresh, though, it is like our ROG STRIX Z790-E board, and the PCIe Gen 5 goes natively on the motherboard. So that means this slot right here has native PCI Express Gen 5 support. Now, you will still get in the add-in card, so that means that this board in total will be able to support up to 5 M.2 based SSDs. So you'll have 4 that are going to be on the motherboard, and then you'll be able to support that 5th through that add-in card. So you still have extensive support when it comes to PCIe, NVMe, M.2 SSDs, but the big benefit, I would say, is going to be that integrated PCI Gen 5 M.2 SSD support on the motherboard, okay? In terms of the kind of the VRM design and the cooling, that wasn't an issue in the prior generation. It was already extremely high-end, really best in class, ultra large, massive heatsink assembly, ultra performant VRM design is still going to be here with, you know, very high grade capacitors, inductors, and power stages. Of course, the ProCool power connectors, the integrated heat pipe, all of this is aluminum, so massive VRM heatsink array. We still keep hallmarks like things like our differential dye sense voltage monitoring, which gives you more advanced and accurate voltage monitoring for things like your CPU. You, of course, have your ProCool power connectors. This front header is going to still keep you the option for quick charging support. So if you add in the supplemental PCI Express power connector right here, you can have up to 60 watts of USB PD power support, right? You get lots of front panel IO connectivity right here, where you have dual front USB 3 legacy connectors right there. Not a lot of motherboards will have dual front legacy connectors. You know, most of them usually only have one. You also, of course, have the high-quality ESS's Quad Saber DAC that's built on motherboard for improved audio, so that's a Supreme Effects audio design. And then even things like down here, a lot of people forget about this, but this was a cool feature they introduced, which was called the alteration mode switch. So the alteration mode switch is like if you run like a vertical graphics card and you're using a riser cable and you run into a compatibility issue, you can actually toggle between PCI Express modes by changing that physical toggle switch. Normally, if you didn't have that, what you would have to do is like you'd maybe have to switch to your integrated graphics, remove the graphics card, try to post, and then change your BIOS settings, and then see if it would actually all be able to work correctly. But now it makes it much easier, so that if you have maybe a sketchy or marginal riser cable, you can actually help to troubleshoot or get it working correctly, make your changes in your settings, and be good to go. And kind of a little pro tip, for those of you who don't want to use any software and don't want to even use the BIOS, you can actually remap this switch to fan controls. So you can actually have like low, medium, high kind of fan control speed on that switch if you want to kind of like a basic fan control profile with that physical switch. So that's pretty cool. Water cooling zone headers for things like temperature inlet and outlet, and flow monitoring, of course, continue to be on the motherboard. And tons of other great features like ASUS AIOC and AI cooling are all going to be built in. Let's go ahead and quickly take a look at the cool Q antenna design. So let me go ahead and bring this up here. This is pretty sweet, pretty cool feature. Let me go ahead and bring this here, and we'll take a look right here. I think I have it. Let me see right here. Do I have it over here? Yeah, Q antenna. Here we go. All right. So here you guys can see, so one of the really cool things here with the Q antenna design is that traditionally, like when you attach the antenna, you actually have to like screw it in. but now this is a push fit connection. So literally all the user needs to do is just push it in until it's fully depressed, and that's it. So there's no kind of twisting. You don't actually have to worry kind of about the cable kind of twisting. And this actually also improves the actual attenuation performance and the throughput. We have noticeably actually measured actually an improvement for 5 gigahertz and 6 gigahertz throughput with this new design. And the other cool thing that you actually see right here in this actual little bit video is that we have some cool features that are actually built in to help you kind of streamline the experience, so that if you're looking for essentially like a visual aid at understanding whether or not the signal strength is actually ideal based on your positioning, we'll actually give you a full readout of that RSSI information, and you can actually even find out the directionality. We can help you to kind of know, do you want to go in one direction, do you want to go in another direction, to be able to actually maximize your performance. So actually these new features for kind of improving the Wi-Fi experience, not only from the physical perspective, which we actually have to redesign the trace layout, PCB connectors, all these kind of different elements. We've done some also additional work in terms of the software side, where within the AC software suite, you'll actually have now these new options to be able to kind of improve upon the overall experience when it comes to your Wi-Fi. So this is all part of what we call like the Q design feature. So, you know, we have everything from like the Q latch design, Q release, where you can easily eject your graphics card on the motherboard by just pressing a button, right, to the, you know, the Q latch for easy M.2 installation, to single-sided DIMMs, right, Q dim, Q LED, Q code, Q shield. All of these things are ultimately quick, right, to help to improve your DIY experience, right? And definitely the Q antenna does just that. So again, just here is like a little bit of an image example of how the utility will help you to know, hey, you're in the excellent range for making sure you're getting the best signal performance, right? And again, here where you can see an example of, hey, if you make these adjustments, if you rotate this, you can see that you've gone from like weak to good to excellent, right? So again, helping you to just overly streamline the experience. So all three of the motherboards that we're going to talk about all have this feature, which is pretty cool. So you don't have to kind of think that this is only going to be reserved on the Maximus, but just because I'm talking about the Maximus first, I wanted to touch on that feature first off, okay? So let's go ahead and just quickly take one last look here at the I/O. And then we're going to switch over to our next board. So we go ahead and go here. So this is going to be, again, just a quick recap of the images and what we kind of talked about already there for the Maximus Hero. So again, that's your rear I/O. Again, no legacy based connectivity, right? And you can see we also have updated the actual iconography there, information. So you can clearly see that she knows which ports are 5G, which ports are 10G, right? And then your Thunderbolt, which of course up to 40 gigabits, right? So very high speed spec board, right? In terms of all of that, the Wi-Fi 7, the multi-channel audio, and the 2.5 gig, clear CMOS, USB BIOS flashback, and then HDMI, right? And then you go for the Hero. Great looking board. What do you guys think? Are you excited about the brand new Maximus Z790 Dark Hero? I know I am. It's my favorite board in the lineup. All right. So that is going to be the Maximus Z790 Hero. Let's go ahead and take a look at the ROG STRIX board. For this one, I do not have yet the final I/O, so you're just going to want to make sure to keep it tuned, but you can pretty much make a comparison to the current board that we have right here. It's going to be fairly similar, but you can see an update. This is going to be for here, the ROG STRIX Z790-A Gaming Wi-Fi 2. All right, here you still get a robust and very performant VRM. Very, very good performance. Where some differentiation points occur, like I said, are going to be things with like this board won't have the differential DiSense voltage monitoring. It might not have the ESS Sabre DAC, but it still has a Supreme Effects audio design, isolated audio paths with audio grade capacitors, has the Sonic Studio software suite. You can still see all the M.2 SSD slots on here have full high performance VRM heatsinks, heatsinks. For all your M.2 based SSDs. That is one difference though. Some people wonder, is like the Maximus Hero will have more what are called the dual contact M.2 SSD heatsinks. And so what dual contact means is that there's actually like a pad and there's a heatsink underneath and on top. And so that when you actually expose the motherboard, that means you have actually 2 points of contact, because for your SSD, let me see if I have one right here. Yeah, I got one right here. Some SSDs, they actually have NAND or like a controller like on the front and on the back, right? And so kind of for the best thermal performance, you actually want contact on the back side and on the top side. And so that's actually where you'll have things like dual contact, like on the Maximus board, it might have like 3 dual contact slots, where maybe like on a TUF Gaming board, it won't have any dual contact slots. They'll all have heat sinks and still offer you very good thermal dissipation performance, but that's like where there's sometimes other differences that people are not always aware of. And we go much deeper into that, into like the full live stream detailing. So you want to find out that stuff, you can definitely check that out, or make sure to keep it tuned for the upcoming stream where we'll talk about those details. You still get the cool stuff like the Q release ejection mechanism that's on there, USB C and a reinforced USB 3, but you can see here like only one USB 3 and one USB C. And you'll also notice here there's no USB PD, right? So that means that this one can't support up to 60 watts. You can still get faster than standard charging support here, but since you don't have that auxiliary, you don't have that quick charge 4+ technology, right? So that's kind of one of the differentiation points. But if you're not using that, not a main difference right there, right? Still an outstanding board and a great choice. Again, if you want to go for maybe a white or silver themed type build, pairs great with, of course, something like our ROG STRIX White Edition based graphics cards. So that is going to be the ROG STRIX Z790-A Gaming Wi-Fi 2. And of course, it also has our ASUS AIOC technology. Okay. Before I go to that board, before I go to the next board, let me go ahead and quickly see if we got any quick questions that might have come up right there. Aline goes, come on, we need an EVA 02 update release date. We'll be coming out with that information soon. Right now, still don't have one. We'll probably have the information, I think, next month. Rest assured, when we're actually going to have the specific dates for the Wave series of release. We talked about this already in the prior PCDIY stream and in our PCDIY group, where we're going to have 4 release waves, right? Wave 1, Wave 2, Wave 3, and Wave 4, right? And we will give you essentially that information once we know exactly, hey, these are the products respected to each wave, and that will roll out. So make sure to just keep it tuned. Not too distant future, that information will definitely be posted in our PCDIY group. As soon as we have it, it'll probably be the first place it'll be posted. I'll cover it here on the stream for sure, and we'll also work to make sure that we're pushing out that information across our social channels, right? Nate says, I just joined the group. Glad to be there. Man, thank you so much, man. Appreciate it. Happy to have you be part of our group. Appreciate it, right? Zahid is asking, is it the Dark Hero, not the Hero? Yes, that's correct. So it's a Z790 Dark Hero, right? Okay. Michael notes says, I love the Hero, very nice, right? He goes, Dark Hero boards are awesome. They have a cool, entirely black aesthetic. Actually, they're already, prior Hero was already also Dark Hero. It was already all a black aesthetic. Literally, there's no difference. The difference is just a little bit in the subtlety of the design, but they were literally both already black. And of course, the prior board had RGB. This one also has RGB. So if you don't have any RGB, they're entirely dark too, right? So, but it's a refresh, and we maintained that kind of dark aesthetic. So it definitely looks very, very cool, right? Does this mean I need to toss my ROG MAXIMUS Z790 formula? I would say no. That board is still a fantastic board. Of course, you can work with our service and support team if you want to be able to get the revised VRM block, right? You can go ahead and do that. And of course, all Z690 series motherboards all support, of course, 13th gen series CPUs. You just need the UEFI BIOS update, and they are good to go. And we have already released also UEFI support for our Intel series of motherboards for next gen Intel series CPUs. So you are covered on both sides of the fence in that regard. William is asking about whether or not there'll be a new Extreme. At this time, we don't actually have any plans for a refreshed version of the Maximus Extreme. Okay. I can't tell you all our details right now. Make sure to keep it tuned. We'll have some other updates regarding Z790 refresh, but right now I confirm for you there's no Z790 Extreme. Okay, update. All right, so let's go into our last board here in terms of the update. So that's going to be the TUF Gaming Z790 Pro Wi-Fi. All right, so let's get to this guy. Another great option, and might be the sleeper favorite. And I go, for me, it's definitely my go-to recommendation board a lot of times when people are asking me which board I'm recommending for the community, for a lot of builders, because it offers a great set of functions and features and specs. It looks great. It has all the core things you want, and while there's definitely great features and functions on our higher end boards, if you don't need an ESSA Sabre DAC, right? If you don't need the water cooling zone zetters, if you're not going to use the differential DiSense monitoring, if you don't need Thunderbolt 4, it's a fantastic board for you, right? So this is going to be the Z790 Pro, Wi-Fi 6E, 2.5 gigabit LAN. You have up to 4 M.2 SSDs that can be supported on this board, right? So you can see one right there, two right there, and then one right there. So this board has 3 heat sinks, right, that'll cover, and then the last one is exposed right there. USB-C, legacy USB 3 right there. You still actually have the really cool Q release ejection design technology, also just like in the prior gen. So you still get that nice benefit that you can easily eject out your graphics cards. 3 RGB headers that are also on this board, integrated IO shield, really nice, performant, cool, and efficient VRM. 100%, you got no issues. If you want to be able to run a 1300K in here, overclocked, and then run 7200 MT memory, this board will do it, no problem. Actually, I already showed you right here. The Prime earlier was showing that 1300K running 7200 memory. They're very similar in terms of their actually overclocking capabilities. So overall, again, very performant board, great option, very reasonable price point. Plus, you also get that new Q antenna design feature on here. But that is where there's a kind of a difference in terms of that Wi-Fi spec. This one will be Wi-Fi 6E. And the ROG STRIX and the MAXIMUS board both come with Wi-Fi 7. So for somebody that's really excited about Wi-Fi 7, then you're going to want to be looking at the ROG STRIX or the MAXIMUS. Now keep in mind that Wi-Fi 7 is also one, it's not validated and formalized yet in terms of driver support and Windows readiness. It will also be exclusive to Windows 11, just like Wi-Fi 6E. Now this doesn't mean that it won't be functioning within, let's say, Windows 10, right? Or Windows 11 if you're running, Windows 10 if you're running them. It will work, you just won't be able to benefit from the full, essentially, bandwidth and throughput for that specification. So you do want to transition over to Windows 11 if you want the best wireless experience, right? As the driver is specifically being validated for Wi-Fi 6E and for Wi-Fi 7 only under Windows 11. So do keep that in mind, okay? So Wi-Fi 6E here, still outstanding, because even keep in mind, Wi-Fi 6E, if you pair that with a Wi-Fi 6E router or even a Wi-Fi 7 router, because it has increased bandwidth performance, you can still be talking about, 1.2, 1.4, 1.5 gigabits of throughputs, so that you're still talking about, 1.5x, right, performance, right, when you compare that to, traditional gigabit Ethernet. That's very, very impressive. But of course, with Wi-Fi 7, we're going to be talking about multiple gigabits of throughput. It's absolutely crazy in terms of the overall speed, right? Where it could, be 2, 3, 4 times the speed of a gigabit Ethernet cable, which is pretty crazy, right? But that is going to be the TUF Gaming Z790 Pro Wi-Fi. All right, let me go ahead and see if there's any quick questions right there. Dead BC says, love that board, right? And got a question. Does the TUF Pro have the PCIe connector so it can exchange the Wi-Fi card? Yeah, so all of them, the way that they have is it's built in IO. It's not designed to kind of be like swapped out, and realistically I don't think you would want to, but yes, the CNV, I'll have to double check, but I do believe it's a CNVI module, so you should in theory be able to kind of swap that out if you wanted to. Although you have to be careful when you do kind of swaps like that, because sometimes when we update the UEFI can have associative information that's specific to the NIC, and that can include the Wi-Fi and the Bluetooth module, so just kind of be mindful of that. Now, one other thing, and I think it's the most exciting update for me, and I really kind of pushed our team on it, and I'm very excited to be able to see that we introduced it for this generation. This will be the first TUF Gaming motherboard that will feature ASUS AIOC technology. So if you've been one of those users that you kind of always looked and you saw those really cool kind of just streamlined overclocking experience that we had with ASUS AIOC on the ROG STRIX boards, on the ProArt motherboards, on the MAXIMUS boards, but you could only get a TUF Gaming board. Really excited about now first offering AIOC and AI cooling on a TUF Gaming motherboard. And if you don't know what ASUS AIOC is, essentially it's our advanced kind of machine learning model firmware that we put in on a hardware level, that the long and short of it just means is that once you install your cooler, it will detect your system's cooler performance. Doesn't matter whether you have a 13600K, 13700K, or 13900K. It will look at your CPU, figure out the quality of your CPU, figure out the cooling performance that you have, and then it will associate an effective and efficient and performant overclock for that CPU, but that is specific to your CPU. The other really cool part about it is it does stuff like utilizes an adaptive voltage, per core based overclocking, which maximizes the margin, and you can even further customize it. We have something that's called a optimism slider, so you can actually scale it up like a little bit more, if you want to go a little bit more aggressive, if you notice, hey, can I get even a little bit more? Or if you actually want to tone it down, you can tone it down. Plus, we have really cool things like even temperature targets, so you can define your actual overclock based on temperature. There's a lot of really cool advanced elements into ASUS AIOC, whether you're an advanced overclocking enthusiast, whether you're a first-time overclocker, or whether you're kind of in the middle of the road person that goes, I just want more out of my system. I bought a nice cooler, I bought a good motherboard and a nice CPU, and I just want to get a little bit more, and I don't want to have to spend hours or weeks to kind of try to figure it out. You can toggle that on and be good to go. So really exciting to be able to introduce ASUS AIOC for this generation. All right. Does ASUS take... Nate, I'm not sure exactly what you mean by saying did like we favor one. I'm not sure exactly actually get your question. What I can tell you though is that ASUS, we are kind of agnostic in that respect, right? We are actually the largest motherboard partner for Intel and the largest motherboard partner for AMD. We fully support both of them in terms of their initiatives across a comprehensive kind of product stack, right? So for us, our goal is to try to just give you the best products resident to whichever platform you decide. So whether you want to build on like X670E or B650E, or you want to build on B760 or Z790, our job is to try to give you a great experience with those components that help to enable that platform, right? And that's the way that we interpret it. And we look to maintain very strong partnerships with all the respective parties, right? Whether it's, like I said, NVIDIA, AMD, Intel, as well as, you know, even like on our monitors, when we talk about that we don't use one singular panel source, right? We could be working with Japan OLED. We could be using, you know, we could work with LG panel, right? Who's producing, right? We could be working with AU Optics, right? We look at a wide range of options because our goal is to try to bring the most comprehensive range of options to the community for the displays that they're looking for, right? And so that's the same thing right there to your question on like, hey, do we focus on one more or the other? It's more so about what can we do to be able to realize the best choices and the best options for users, regardless of whether you're Intel or AMD. So hopefully that figures that out, right? And I can tell you right now, my system, if you notice right there, the benchmarks that I was running right here. So when you talk about like Windows 11, I'm not sure what you mean by that. One of my personal systems right now is running Windows 11 with an AMD platform, and I haven't had any issues. And again, the kind of the performance updates that I showed you right here, where even again, if we're talking about like stability, right, this right here, this is, you know, running a 7700X, and then I have another system too that's also running 7800X 3D. For memory, full passing stability testing, I'm not finding any issues, and that's all with Windows 11 with current up-to-date Windows 11 releases and driver sets, and running without any issues. And we have great feedback also from partners like our system integrated partners and things along those lines. So I'm not sure exactly where you're kind of sourcing your information from, but yeah, I would have no qualms to say if you want to build a current platform on AMD with Windows 11, you can have a great experience. Okay, all right. So let's go ahead and move into the next option right here. So those are going to be our Z790 refresh based motherboards. We're good to go on that side. So now let's go into the next one here. Let me go ahead and move this out. So we cover this OLED monitor, this OLED monitor, this OLED monitor, this motherboard, and this motherboard. All right, so now let's get a little bit into the concept stuff. We can give you guys a little bit of an update on the ASUS BTF. That is going to be the hidden connector kind of motherboard design. So we are looking to have hopefully a bit more information to release to you guys in the not too distant future in the kind of what we're going to be looking for a North American release, probably in the beginning of Q4 timeframe. So in the not too distant future, you should see a more formalized update from us regarding actually the scope of what we'll be releasing. There is going to be most likely a focus to look to offer a kind of consolidated portfolio perspective, meaning that kind of a bundled pairing to streamline the experience for the user when you kind of consider something like the motherboard, the graphics card, and the chassis kind of pairing together to make sure that you as a user, if you're going to be considering this, everything just works together, because of course with the motherboard design, it will require a specific chassis to be able to fully support that type of motherboard design. Now, some of the prior concepts have shown you a micro ATX based focus, but for North America, we're looking to prioritize most likely an ATX based model for release. So that means a larger kind of traditional form factor, because the vast majority of builders, especially within North America, focus on an ATX based form factor. Now this doesn't mean that we might later on maybe have other form factor boards that would adopt the BTF based specification standard, and we'll look definitely from feedback from the community in that respect. But let's go ahead and take a look at what we've shown off here at Gamescom, give you some idea of the systems and how they've played out. So of course here you can see this is going to be an example here of a TUF Gaming ATX based motherboard, right? Allowing users to be able to essentially have that hidden connector type design. So of course, when we take a look at the board right here, you'll notice that there's no power connector, there's no CPU power connector, right? There's no fan connectors. You just have this nice shroud design. Overall, a very clean front facade for the motherboard, right? Of course, you have your traditional slots there for things like your graphics card, for your DRAM, and for your M.2 SSDs, right, that are going to be there. Now, there is this auxiliary connector right here, and that's unique to ASUS. It is going to be one of kind of the unique aspects of how we approach our essentially our kind of cableless design in terms of the front portion of the chassis. And the reason why is because that auxiliary connector will allow you to streamline the experience even further, supporting up to 600 watts, so meaning that we can support the highest performing GPUs on the market. Now, in terms of the GPU target, again, this is something we're still evaluating, but most likely we're going to be probably evaluating something within that 4060 to 4070 type class, or similar, maybe something like a 7800 XT, right? And that will be something that we're still evaluating, but again, you know, make sure to keep it tuned, and we'll provide you updates as we get closer to the release. But here's an example of the ATX based variant of the board. In terms of the graphics card, you'll also see the graphics card will look different, and the reason again why we're probably looking at having a kind of bundled experience, as you can see, is that this card will require that BTF based motherboard, right? Because since it has that auxiliary based connector, it will be specific to that motherboard, and having a paired solution means that the user has everything working seamlessly together. Now, it's important to note this doesn't replace all of our motherboards, it doesn't replace our graphics cards, it doesn't replace our other chassis, right? We literally have right now hundreds of motherboards that we actively produce. All of those meet the standard, right? So if you're somebody that wants the brightest choice, just like we talked about, those new MAXIMUS boards, those new STRIX boards, those TUF Gaming motherboards, those are all traditional options. If you want the most flexibility to pick that motherboard, a TUF Gaming card, a dual card, a STRIX card, a ProArt card, right, a Noctua card, whatever you want, go with those boards, and that gives you that experience. But you know, are you on team cable or are you not in team cable? I don't mind cables. I like cables. I like the texture, the color, and the contrast they provide. But if you're somebody that is interested in maybe a new build that is more streamlined, this can be an option for you. Okay. And here you can ultimately see what the system looks like, fully comprised together. Really, really clean. This is using our TUF Gaming BTF chassis. So this is actually a version of the TUF Gaming chassis. Specifically designed for this actual motherboard, right? But you can still see, gives you that great benefit of split chamber design. These are our TF120 fans, and you can just see how nice it looks, right? Where you don't see literally any of those cables, and we then have a nice tower heatsink in there. Really cool design aesthetic. Secondary kind of look right there. You can see right here, again, no cables because they're all going through that auxiliary connector that goes through the motherboard. Right? And if we were to take a look at an example of what those connectors look like on the board, here's the micro ATX version of the board, and you can see there, here's your CPU power, your fan connectors, your ARGB, your 24-pin power USB-C, legacy right there. On the ATX based board, you would also actually have your 12-volt high power, or actually triple PCIe power connectors also applicable there, so there's more variability in there, so just depends on that, right? Okay. Here's the ATX based version. And here's another example of a kind of system that we had set up there as well in the TUF Gaming GT-502, again with the same ATX based motherboard, the graphics card, and actually our brand new TUF Gaming LC2 cooler. Okay, so pretty cool in terms of the TUF Gaming LC2 cooler. Okay, so what do you guys think? Are you a fan of the BTF? Are you hashtag team cable or hashtag no cable, or undecided? You know, which one are you in the camp of? But that gives you a little bit of an update in terms of the BTF. So let me go ahead and just see any thoughts right there. William asking about any update on the Matrix. Next month we'll have an update on the Matrix. Make sure to keep it tuned. We're getting pretty close to readying kind of the channel availability. As I've already noted, it will be a very limited production based SKU, so make sure to keep it tuned to the PCDIY group, to the weekly stream. We will be giving visibility when we're getting ready to release it onto the channel. Again, though, my expectation, it's probably going to sell out very quick, because we have a limited production and very, very high level of demand. A lot of people are very excited about that graphics card, right? Michael notes, he goes, I love the BTF design, sign me on. All right. Lex Luthor is asking about Relate. I'm not going to speculate on what YouTubers note, right? We've already provided a relative target. You know, when it comes to the relative timeline, everything is always a rough estimate because changes can happen, right? Whether it's going to be in the validation or whether it's even on the logistics. The reality is even once we receive actually our shipment from final inventory, it can be difficult to kind of know 100% how that gets aligned with our channel partners, right? So when we ship out, sometimes some channel partners, it can take them 7 days, and some other channel partners, it can take them a week, 30 days, so a month, right, to be able to get something listed on their site. So the best thing I can tell you, right, is that ultimately if you're following our social channels, our PCDIY group, our weekly stream, we'll provide updates resident to the availability for these respective monitors, right? So make sure to just keep it tuned in that respect, okay? Matthew Underwood goes, cables on the back. I hope there's open air cutouts on the case mounts. Yes, so the actual chassis is specifically designed for essentially that, because that's the reason why I noted that we would be kind of looking at kind of a compatibility, right, matrix where those products all kind of come in tied together. So yes. No cables will make it easy for builds. Well, keep in mind, there's still cables. They're just moved to the back, right? So, you know, they're just moved to the back. You still have physical cables. You still need to plug in a PCI Express power, right? You still need to plug in 24-pin power. You still need to plug in your fans, right? They're just moving to the back. So really kind of the way that you should think about it more so is that you're not talking about that there's no cables. It's not like something that we had with like our ROG Avalon concept, which actually there was a lot less cables there because we were using what are called edge connectors. That's still a design I would love to see us actually come to market with, because that is really limiting a lot of cables, because even things like the power supply would have a direct edge connection type system, which even allowed for less resistance, was actually even more streamlined in terms of the experience. You don't have to worry about fitment issues sometimes on cables and things like that. So you still have cables, they've just moved to the back. So for users that are looking for that cleaner aesthetic, right, then I would say yes, that's going to be no cables, right? Mike Russo goes, team cable for less power through mainboard. Interesting perspective. You know, it depends. All right. We want white BTF Hyperion. I don't know, right? Hidden aesthetics improve aesthetics. I don't know if hidden cables, I think, improve aesthetics, because for me, I personally find that cables can add aesthetics. They can actually add texture, contrast, and color to a system. So actually, I really like sometimes seeing a cable, but I think that definitely for some people, they will really like just the refined minimal nature of not seeing a cable. So I think ultimately it's cool for the PCDIY community, and it's one of the things that we're most excited about is just giving users the opportunities to build systems how they want to be able to build systems, right? So with that, let's go to our next update here. And speaking of the Hyperion, let's give a little bit of an update and a little bit preview here on the upcoming white Hyperion, which should be coming in early Q4. So let's take a look at this white ecosystem here of components with the white Hyperion GR701. It looks good. All right, the Hyperion was already a bold, distinct, and very stylized chassis, but if you wanted to kind of go all out, then this is going to be a pretty amazing offering that we're going to option. And again, just like our GT502 in white, really we've brought a huge level of attention to detail to the level of white, right? Like the GT502, to my knowledge, was the first chassis on the market, and I think still maybe the only one that's truly like white across the board, right? So white outside, white inside, gray grommets. The cables are all actually white as well, and that you see right here. And of course, ASUS really does have, I think, the most comprehensive ecosystem in the industry for people that are looking for white and silver theme type builds, right? Where we have white chassis, white coolers, white fans, white power supplies, white graphics cards, white keyboards, white mice, right? We have the entire ecosystem so that if you want to go that route, you can do exactly what you see in this picture and be able to put together that type of build. And the cooler there is that beautiful, of course, Ryu Gen 3 in white, which looks really, really good, right? I think for me, though, personally, I would go with the horizontal mount as opposed to the vertical mount. Actually, I think it looks better because I like seeing that side profile with that nice white bar, and then seeing a little bit more of that contrast on the silver portion of the bottom of the board. But I know a lot of people do like vertical mounting too. So that is going to be the white Hyperion GR701 coming to you in the not too distant future. So make sure to keep it tuned, and you will be finding out about this guy if you guys are going to be interested. Are you excited about the white Hyperion GR701? Let me know. Let's see a feedback right there. Michael Braun goes, I want one, please. White, white Hyperion, right? So somebody asking, does it have less smoky glass? No, actually it won't have like less smoke. To my understanding, the tempered glass should be similar, but it'll probably look a little bit different because keep in mind, inherently, it'll probably seem a little bit brighter because white has more of a reflective tendency and black, of course, is going to be more opaque. It kind of pulls in lighting against it, right? So I think it'll probably seem like actually it will be more just visible in general, right? But I will be double checking with our team to see if there's actually any variant specific to the tempered glass tinting, but it should actually be the same. Thank you, Nate. He goes, beautifully designed, right? And Michael also gives feedback is agree, horizontal preferred, right? Okay, very, very cool. Sumin's throwing in there for sure. I think Sumin says maybe he wants to put that white Hyperion and if he can pick up that ROG Matrix 4090, right? All right, so very, very cool. Oh, I like this. He's thinking. I'm liking where Justin's thinking right here. So JC, a great builder and modder out there, he goes a white and chromed Hyperion. I think that is start playing the Stradivarius because that's going to be a symphony of beautiful music right there. Yeah, that would be quite nice. I think that would look really, really great. All right. So next up here, let's go ahead and see what we got rounding things out here. So we got the white Hyperion. Okay, so router update right here. So we guys have already gone ahead and made. Ooh, interesting. Let me see right here. I'm getting a chat right now on the stream. Let me go ahead. Sorry, give me 1 second, guys. Let me see right here. So let's give some props to our marketing director. Our marketing director just noticed, he said, like, JJ, I'm noticing that you've got your 100th PCDIY stream going on. Are you interested in maybe doing a giveaway? So actually he's saying maybe want to maybe do a giveaway for like a Hyperion. That's our flagship gaming chassis. So maybe we might do something like that. I don't know. Let me know if you guys, are you guys down for a giveaway? I think that could be kind of cool. Maybe we'll actually span it to where maybe for the next couple of days for people that have checked out the stream and then maybe go back to comment about maybe what's their favorite product that they were excited about in this stream, right? And let us know, maybe it's those new Z790 refresh boards, maybe it's this router we're going to be talking about, maybe it's the new monitors. Maybe we'll do a post and based on that, we can actually open that up. So I think that would be kind of pretty cool and pretty interesting. But that being noted, let's go ahead and keep wrapping things up. Well, excuse me, getting ready to wrap things up here with, of course, the ROG Rapture Wi-Fi 7 router. So this is going to be the GT-BE98 Pro. So if you guys remember, just last week, we finalized the MPI introduction. So essentially the release of the ASUS BE96, which is our other Wi-Fi 7 router. So in the not too distant future, we're going to be getting ready to release this guy, which will be our flagship. This will be our highest end Wi-Fi 7 router. Okay. This is a truly just performant and feature rich router. Now, a lot of times people want to kind of limit routers to talk about just wireless performance, but the reality is once you start to get into really high-end routers, you're really talking about kind of a more comprehensive kind of backbone to your network. So we're talking about wired and wireless connectivity and even the experiences that it can help to facilitate. So this unit right here, it's of course going to feature Wi-Fi 7. It'll have the fastest, of course, aggregated throughput level here in terms of a Wi-Fi 7 router on the market, but it's also going to be opening up, right, the highest level of band support, right? So as opposed to the prior model, the B96, which is going to be tri-band, here we're going to have quad band. Here we also have two 10G ports on here and quad, that's right, 4 2.5 gigabit ports. Okay, so this unit is stacked right here. So this is really going to be conducive to people that have maybe a high-speed SAN or NAS configuration at home. Maybe they have a motherboard with a 10G base configuration. Maybe they've got one of our laptops and a desktop also that has 2.5G base networking, right? And they want to be able to benefit from that. Also, of course, critically, the higher end routers have what are called multi-gig WAN. So multi-gig WAN is going to be important on your actual router, because as we're starting to see now, we're finally getting ISP services that are moving beyond gigabit, right? We have gigabit, 2.5, 5 gigabit, and even 10 gigabit ISP-based services. So you actually need the WAN, the input on the router, to be able to support that speed so that it can distribute that out wirelessly as well. And that's a key benefit that you get here, right? Is again, you're not just buying into Wi-Fi 7, you're buying into that very performant, of course, hardwire experience that this unit facilitates. And another big benefit that is exclusive to ASUS, we are the industry leaders in this respect, is that we have an extendable router ecosystem, right? We've spent years at implementing the firmware and the hardware designs to facilitate our ASUS AiMesh technology. So what does that mean? It literally means that you can put two of these together or pair it with any number of other routers to be able to go ahead and even have a broader level of coverage. Now, the question might be, so as you go, like, why would you necessarily want to have more bands, right? So when we talk about, let's say, like a dual band router to a tri-band router to a quad band router, it's important to keep in mind that if I have one router and I take another router and I have a mesh network and I have two bands, I'm losing one band because I need one wireless, what's called backhaul, to connect those two routers together to be able to provide me essentially my wireless network. That's then the advantage of a tri-band router. Is a tri-band router, if I take two tri-bands, that means I'm going to lose one backhaul, but then I keep two open, so I can have 2.4 and 5 gigahertz available, right? And then a quad band is the most advantageous because I can have still one band connecting my two routers together, right? But then I can still keep three bands open. And that third band, critically, that high-speed band is important because that high-speed band is going to be ideal for Wi-Fi 6E devices, which right now are actually pretty prevalent. There's right now very few Wi-Fi 7 devices. So for instance, something like our ROG phone has Wi-Fi 7 on it. We have motherboards that are coming with Wi-Fi 7, but there's a lot of Wi-Fi 6E. We've got motherboards, mini PCs, laptops, there's tablets, there's phones, there's a lot of stuff that actually now even has Wi-Fi 6E. So having actually that tri-band versus quad band, that's what that helps to facilitate. And of course, our software also gives you the flexibility that if you don't want to lose any bands, you can do a wired backhaul. And this gets back to the value of having like a 2.5G switch built into the router, or even a 10G level of network connectivity on the router, a benefit. Because then if you had that as a wired backhaul, like a 10G to 10G link or 2.5G to 2.5G link, you can keep all your bands exposed, right? So that is very exciting. And now I want to actually show you just one other thing that's pretty cool here. So let me go ahead and bring this up and show you here. But let's take a look at some throughput right here. So if we take a look at the overall throughput here, we can actually see that with Intel's latest generation, of course, a Gale Peak 2 here. So this is going to be the Wi-Fi 7 based chipset with, of course, also the ROG Rapture, the BE98, right? You can see aggregate up to 30,000 megabits right here. And this is using an ultra high speed, the fastest quad core chipset on the market, right? Has DDR4 memory built onto it. It's pretty crazy, right? Look at your speed here, right? 4.95 gigabits, almost 5 gigabits, right? That literally means, guys, think about that. That's almost 5 times the speed of a 1 gigabit Ethernet cable. That's absolutely crazy that that type of speed is possible. Now, of course, with wireless, it's very important to keep in mind that wireless, the speeds, of course, go down over range, right? So optimally, usually your fastest speeds are going to be within 10 to 15 feet. And then once you start to get to, 20, 30, 40, 50 feet away, right, your speeds go down. But that's the advantage of having a bigger pipeline in terms of your bandwidth, right? Because if you even are starting with, let's say, 3,000 megabits, but then even at, 150 feet away, right, you're then able to still have 1,000 megabits, and that's what you have coming into your home. You have a gigabit connection. You can see that you can still maximize your gigabit connection wirelessly throughout the entire range of your home. So a really exciting, very performant based solution. There's a lot of other really great features that literally we don't have all the time to be able to touch on, but we're going to probably have a dedicated stream where we're going to jump into the ASUS WRT4 firmware experience, all the really cool features and functions that we've just recently introduced, including cool things like tethering for like Android and iOS phones that are going to be built in, where you can literally just plug your phone into the USB port on the router and it could backup default use that as a connection and share that out to your wireless network, which is great for just like a fall safe or like a backup environment if maybe like you lost your hardline kind of ISP based service. That and like so many other really cool features like deep packet inspection analysis or subscription V protection services that we have built in, or on router VPN. So many cool things that we have, and like I said, we'll dive into more of that in probably a future live stream. So let me go ahead and just see if we got any quick things right there. Now we can stream 8K movies with no buffering, right? Yeah, pretty crazy. Hey, Z77. Hey, fantastic, man. Thanks for joining us here on the stream. Ernest goes, wow, I would agree. Yeah, I mean, it's pretty crazy. I mean, who would have thought, right? Where, I mean, always, you know, you think just wired is better, but it's pretty crazy that those speeds are just so significantly faster than even a gigabit Ethernet based cable, right? So pretty sweet. Yep, and that user goes, wired backhaul if you're super fancy. Yep, and so that's actually the way I run it in my house, is I do a wired backhaul. But again, one of the really cool things here, you know, with the routers, you have that flexibility that you can do a wireless or a wired backhaul. So it's entirely up to you to kind of make it work. So entirely fine. So you totally have your choice right there. So I think actually we do have feedback there that we can probably go ahead and go with that giveaway. So I'm going to let you guys know right now. I think we're going to go ahead and do that. We're going to do, maybe because the pricing is pretty similar, whether it's maybe the Hyperion or maybe the ROG 3. I know a lot of people have been really excited about it. So maybe we're going to do that as a chat opportunity right now for you guys in the group. Okay. We're going to go ahead and do a giveaway. This will be to our North American based users. So if you guys are joining us outside of North America, I'm sad to say, sorry. Doesn't count for you guys, but as always, just make sure and watch, because we do a lot of global giveaways. You know, recently that Gamescom giveaway that we just did, our course also covered our global users. But decide, do we want to do the ROG 3? And that way you can go ahead and do the white or the black one, right? So we've got the Noctua, we've got the black, we've got the white based options, or we can go ahead and go with the Hyperion. So either one. So I think the cooler gives you the flexibility that works with AMD, that works with Intel, whichever kind of solutions you have, or you can go with the Hyperion. All right, guys. So I'm going to let you guys kind of give that feedback and that perspective. So give me 1 second, guys. All right, guys. And so just one other quick update, because I know somebody asked about it here, and I want to just kind of show it really quick, is of course, we do, of course, have more information coming for that ROG Evangelion based release. So just again, I don't have full updates for you, but we'll probably have a little bit more information as we get ready to go into next month, as the first wave release should be happening in September, and then as we go all the way probably into late October will probably be wave 4 release. So the one thing that we will know right here is that in terms of the actual kind of hardware release, keep in mind for North America, we'll pretty much have all of the key components. We also have a great build that we did with Stuart Tonks. You can see that on our YouTube channel, where we did that from LTX, where we actually did a full Evangelion build. We had all the components there, and we put together a full system in real time, so that was pretty sweet. The only item that we won't be carrying in North America will pretty much be the monitor, but the desk mat, the keyboard, the mouse, the chassis, the power supply, the graphics card, the Herculix, the motherboard, and the cooler, those will be all items that will be available for the Evangelion base released. Okay, so overall that's going to get us covered here. So let's go ahead and quickly see if we got some feedback here. I want to make sure though, clear though, won't be the Hyperion on white, because I don't know when the Hyperion white is going to come in through, and this will be for your standard Hyperion, okay, for your standard Hyperion. All right, guys, so keep that in mind. All right, so standard Hyperion. So let's see right here. We got Hyperion, some people saying it Hyperion white, so I'm going to give some feedback. So actually, it seems like a lot of people are actually really juiced about the Hyperion, so I guess we can do for the Hyperion. Yeah, okay, that's entirely fine. Pretty exciting. Okay, so I think that's pretty cool. So we'll go we'll go with that one. All right, guys, let's go ahead and just get ready to wrap this thing up here with the last pieces. So we had our ROG Rapture right there, Wi-Fi 7 GT-BE98 Pro. We've also got the Loki. I just want to give an update here because I know we've had some people ask about this, guys. So I just want to let you guys know it is finally coming in. So we have gone ahead and already released the Loki series of SFX-based PSUs, which include, of course, we had the 750 watt, 850 watt, and the 1000 watt. We also had, of course, the 850 watt, which came in black and came in white. But we are going to be prepping the 1200 watt. So the 1200 watt is still going to be coming. So for those of you that really need that ultra high wattage, right, which really isn't for, I think, a kind of a current high-end system, because the reality is like even something with like a 13900K or like a 7950X and then something with like a 7900 XTX or a 4090, the power transients and actually power efficiency on a 4090 is better than like a 30. So you would really kind of almost need like an older GPU, like a 3090 Ti or something like that, to justify, I think, the 1200 watt, and then again a heavily overclocked. So it would probably have to be like a small form factor, like liquid cooled build, where you'd really need this type of kind of wattage factor. Because I think for the vast majority, you know, 850 to 1000 watt is definitely where you would be enough. Or if maybe you want to fit this into an ATX based build, right, and just take advantage because it's a little bit more compact design, then you'll definitely have that. So we will still be coming out with this model. We'll probably have more information as we get, and I think it's probably about the end of September, so make sure to keep it tuned. But the 1200 watt Loki is going to be coming in. And also as an update, remember, we will also have a 1200 watt version of the TUF Gaming Gold Series power supply as well, which is going to be coming, as right now the highest end model that we'll offer is the 1000 watts. So a couple of actually 1200 watts will be coming in. And I do believe 1200 watt is also tentatively reserved for our ROG STRIX Aura series, which is our new ATX 3.0 for the ROG STRIX Aura series power supplies as well. So we'll have kind of in total actually 3 1200 watts, not counting, of course, the 1200 watt Thor P2, which already is available. Okay, so that is going to be for the Loki. So Michael goes, no white then AIO. No, we can do, I think if we do the Ryujin, that's fine. I think for the Ryujin, we can kind of let you decide, do you want to go with the right Ryujin or you want to go with the black? I think it's pretty cool because again, the Ryujin comes in that white or comes in that black. And you have those brand new daisy chain magnetic fans. And plus I like the flexibility, you know, with that 8th gen ASPEC pump. It's cool, it's quiet, it's really performant. And it also can work if you've got an older build or you've got a newer build, it'll work, you know, whether you got AM4 or AM5, whether you've got, you know, 10900K or you're building a 1300K, it can work there. But the Hyperion, of course, is a beautiful chassis, tons of space, great that you could even take your old system and just move it inside of a really cool chassis and have tons of space. Or if you want to use that as a foundation for an amazing build, it's a great option. So I think either which way, it'll be cool. So I'm going to leave it up to you guys, but it does sound like probably the majority of people are actually more interested in picking up the Hyperion than they are even getting the chance to win a Ryujin. So since you guys are watching us here on the stream, I'm letting you make the decision as opposed to even the members in the group, even though I think we're going to go ahead and we'll sprinkle it out to the other members in the group to make sure that they have the opportunity, because PCDIY stream is all about leveraging our amazing community from our PCDIY group there, right? So overall, pretty excited there. So let's go ahead and I think bring in the last two products. We're pretty much at the end of the stream, guys. So the last item I actually have is going to be a new product. So as opposed to everything else that I fundamentally talked about, which was essentially a product that is going to be coming out, we actually do have two products that are specifically going to be released into the channel for actual channel availability. We talked a lot about ROG based displays today, although if you guys have been watching the stream recently, we've had quite a number of monitor updates. I think probably, you know, for every stream recently we've had new monitors coming out. So we have an actual new update here, and that's going to be here with this guy, the TUF Gaming. Let me go ahead and give me 1 second here. Give me 1 second. Let's adjust that here. And it's going to be, yeah. Okay, here we go. Perfect. So we're going to have the TUF Gaming, not TUF Gaming 7700XCX, but the TUF Gaming VG249Q3A. So this is going to be, for those of you that think focused at not wanting to spend a huge amount of money, but you're maybe just looking for a new monitor, maybe as a secondary upgrade, or maybe you're just looking to build a kind of more aggressive budget build, right? Where you want to be able to have kind of maybe a more esports vibe, so playing some Valorant, Fortnite, Apex, CSGO, Rainbow Six Siege, things along those lines, League of Legends, right? Rocket League, whatever it might be, because here you're going to have a really solid panel where it's a fast IPS. That means it's a newer generation IPS where you've got a nice low responsive pixel response time. Now keep in mind that 1 millisecond gray to gray, that's the overall kind of peak in terms of the best measurement, but if you actually measure the pixel response across the entirety of the display, it's actually higher than that. But overall, very nice pixel response time. 180 hertz in terms of the refresh rate, right? I really love the fact 99% sRGB, so it's effectively almost 100% sRGB, so very nice color rendition capability for the monitor, which is great because the reality is the vast majority of what you use, whether it's on desktop experience or whether it's gaming, is going to be in the sRGB space, right? You also have our extreme low motion blur technology, which is great if you want to be able to have backlight strobing as an option that you can kind of toggle on to see if it further improves your actual kind of gameplay experience. And if it's not something that benefits you, the great thing is you can toggle it on or off, right? You can choose to utilize it depending on your wants and needs. Nice kind of clean compact bezel design, right? This stand, because it is a little bit more entry, isn't going to have the full ergonomic range of adjustments that like our higher end displays will usually have, like tilt, height, pivot, tilt, height, pivot, and swivel, where this one I believe is only going to be just height adjustment that will be, tilt adjustment that will be available to you, okay? But you do have some nice things that historically won't always be seen at a $180 price point, which is including the variable overdrive, which we kind of talked a little bit about that with the OLED-based displays. That gives you an advantage of, again, having a more consistent kind of a smooth motion clarity experience, mitigating undershoot or overshoot, right, when it comes to the overall refresh rate experience, right? I also really love that this monitor does have our display widget center software. So even though it's one of our entry-level monitors, the display widget software, you can install that, and then you can be able to adjust things like your brightness. You could switch between like FPS to racing to a custom sRGB profile, right? All within Windows, right? You can do all those adjustments and you don't have to ever physically touch like any buttons on the monitor. And there's other stuff like our shadow boost technology and other things like that that we have in that's pretty cool. Dual HDMI display port and a 3.5 millimeter headphone jack on there as well. I also do want to note something that sometimes gets overlooked that I think is important within the more entry-level monitors is we do have a 3-year warranty. Some competitors within these same spec of monitors are only going to offer you a 1-year warranty versus our 3-year warranty. And we also maintain what's called a open pixel response policy. So that means, a bright dot and dark dot pixel response policy. So that means you can clearly see actually on our website what we actually cover in terms of dead pixels and bright pixels. Some manufacturers don't actually even disclose that information. So if you contact them, it's just ultimately becomes a discussion between you and their support team, where at least for us, we'll clearly detail to you, if your monitor does have, let's say, these number of dark dots or it has these number of bright dots and it meets that criteria, then it would actually fall under our warranty coverage. And I think that's a great thing, especially, like I said, if you've got a little bit less money right here, you still have, like I said, a solid warranty period along with that bright dot and dark dot pixel response policy. So that is going to be the TUF Gaming VG249Q3A. All right. Nice addition right there in terms of our entry-level TUF Gaming monitors. All right. And last but not least right here, this is going to wrap it up. And then I think we'll go ahead and do a couple of builds here to just wrap things up in the PCDIY Builder Spotlight, is we do have our Expert Wi-Fi. This is going to be the EBM68, right? So this is actually a brand new category for us. The Expert Wi-Fi series is actually our series that has been focused pretty much at, I would say, kind of SMB. So SMB means small business, small home office environment. It has more advanced options for things like VLAN management, or what are called like captive portals. So captive portals, if you've ever gone to like, you gone to maybe like certain coffee shops or like a hotel, or you go to an airport and you have like a special like portal that comes up, allows you to capture information, maybe show an image. that stuff can be all done within an expert Wi-Fi router. You have advanced VLAN management. For those of you not aware about that, I'm not going to get into the technical aspects of it, but it's an advantage for specific businesses and environments that require that functionality. And also it's quite robust in terms of its expansiveness. So we can actually scale up expert Wi-Fi, where like our traditional AiMesh models might be limited up to like 5 models, which is already quite a bit. Here we can actually go or even 5 models. So deployment for like larger environments is quite easy. And the expert Wi-Fi ecosystem will actually also include things like dedicated access points, power over Ethernet enabled devices, specialized switches, also still while maintaining very, very easy management, no type of software subscription costs for the user, all of the features and functions built in directly into the firmware. So leveraging really our long-term kind of proven experience that we have within our traditional router product, but now kind of opening up a new kind of opportunity here. So here within the expert Wi-Fi, this will be the first product that we'll have. So this will be kind of similar to what you would think from just like a mesh Wi-Fi ecosystem product, right? But like I said, with those business grade features and functions, it's a 2-pack based model based with Wi-Fi 6, and the rest of the features kind of noted right here. But you can see very nice speed, right, up to 7800 megabits. That's your theoretical, right? In reality, right, it's going to be lower than that. You do have flexibility in terms of how this can be mounted, but where some of the options like we talk about in terms of like business grade connectivity is things like VLAN. You have the dual and backup WAN functionality, which of course are going to be critical in those type of spaces environment. Segregated profiles and usage, tracking for data, where you can have actually the analysis for how your devices are connected. They're monitoring their feedback, their bandwidth utilization, right? And even things like our security policies, right? Where we have things like HTTPS monitoring, right? So if you connect potentially maybe to like a malicious server, you don't want that to affect the other things on the network, right? We'll automatically actually block that connection to that server so that it doesn't affect your network and the devices that are attempting to connect to it. And that's actually all things that we work on in the back end consistently are updated and all monitored, and so you're all good to go. So some really cool functions and features right here. You'll also see some nice stuff that, again, for kind of maybe deployment purposes, you can see accessories for things like wall mounting, traditional routers. I know we've even had people that have asked us about this for our regular routers, like, hey, I would want to be able to mount this on the wall. So who knows, maybe we'll see this go into future, let's say, consumer routers, right? But these models, because you want to deploy them, you might not have them like on a table or like in the corner somewhere, right? You actually might put it on the wall, right? So you can see you have easy included accessories that actually allow you to have it both as a stand or as a wall mount based option, right? Also, even things like managing the airflow, because a lot of times these routers are going to be kept on 24 hours a day, being able to actually ensure an optimized antenna design, right, along with thermal reliability, which is important for the chipset, right, because you don't want the chipset to essentially overheat and cause any type of issues. So that is going to be the expert Wi-Fi coming in with the 2-pack. And well, like I said, we'll have more items that'll be coming out in the expert Wi-Fi, and then I have to use this in future, including, like I said, like a power over Ethernet, APs, and a couple of other devices rounding that out. All right. So yeah, let me go ahead and I'll post that link right there. So give me 1 sec right there. I'll drop that in the chat right there. There you go. I've got ahead and dropped that in there. All right, guys. So let's get ready to go ahead and wrap things up here with our PCDIY Builder Spotlight. We haven't had one in a little bit. I can't get too many builds in, but I'm going to go ahead and do a few here. So let me do that. Also, I want to say a big thank you again for all of you that stayed through to the stream. Fantastic, man. It's been fantastic to be able to go ahead and do 100 PCDIY streams. And again, we're just getting things started. We got more amazing things planned, not only for our group, but for the community, for the streams, for the relaunch of our PCDIY YouTube channel, for having more content for you guys to be able to have, the best insights and understanding about a wide range of ASUS products, and continue to hopefully make sure that you guys have all the information you need so that you can have a better experience as you support ASUS. We want to be able to support you guys. So thank you guys so much. Also excited about being able to do what looks like it's probably going to be a giveaway for the Hyperion to be able to go ahead and celebrate this 100th stream. So let's go ahead and bring up our first PCDIY Builder Spotlight. This is going to be from our friends over at EK. This is their, actually speaking of the Hyperion, let's actually, for those of you that haven't even seen a Hyperion chassis, I think most of the people in the build have been able to see it, right? This is the EK Hyperion build. So let's go ahead and bring up some photos for this build right here. And we'll take a look at it right here. So, all right, let's go ahead and check it out. All right, so pretty cool. So for those of you not aware, right, the Hyperion, that's our new larger kind of, I would say almost water-cooled focused chassis, but not definitely just water-cooled or liquid-cooled. You can easily do a high-end AIO-cooled system. The actual Evangelion Wave 2 releases, of course, are also in a Hyperion, and that's using, you know, like our 360 millimeter AIO Ryujin 2 cooler, right? And it looks fantastic in there. But, you know, the big thing on the Hyperion was, of course, offering more space, right? Being able to support dual 420 millimeter radiators, optimally has support from partners like EK here for an integrated distro block, right? And just be able to give you a lot of room to be able to have a high-end build. Of course, also has really, really cool accent and stylized lines. The handles there, which actually are functional, make it easier to lift the unit, and lots of rich I/O, right? Very few chassis in this segment actually have the level of I/O that this has, where you have dual 20 gigabit USB, plus you have 4 USB-A ports. So there's a total of 6 USB ports on the front of the chassis, which is actually pretty rare. But really cool. Love, of course, that just that look and vibe and feel that we have. The gold doors, which of course are going to swing out right here. You can see that they went actually with a vertical base mount design, but I think that works within this type of build because we have a little bit more of a kind of a teardrop or kind of like waterfall type of effect. So the hallmark of the Hyperion is definitely this big kind of skeletal frame design, this X frame design, which I think looks really cool, really distinct. I really actually like it. I think it looks amazing, especially for the Evangelion based version, which it feels inherently like mecha, right? It has that really, really cool vibe to it. And of course you have these huge open slats which bring tons of airflow actually onto the inside of the chassis. I know some people originally when they thought this there wasn't a lot of airflow, but there's actually tons of airflow that comes in because of these open slats. We actually did full kind of a simulation and testing to be able to validate that during the design and development stage of the actual Hyperion. And some cool things like right here, like the triangular lighting scheme. I really love how this lights in, where they did white right here, and then they of course have the red, and I think that's a perfect kind of contrast, right, where it gives you kind of that color play. I really, really like what they did right there in terms of having this color scheme with the red color scheme, and then of course all the beautiful blocks, of course, all with their Matrix 7 integration as well for a really nice, clean, kind of consistent look and feel. It's really, really nicely done. Taking a look there at the inside, it's just beautifully clean, right? I mean, you got that beautiful, clean, integrated, of course, distro block, distribution plate, right, and that block in there. Looks really nice. It looks like they used their satin finish. The satin finish is really, really nice. It just gives you that it's not glossy, right, but it gives you that nice kind of brightness feel, but also still being like a little bit softened, which I think works really, really nicely. So if you actually talk about colors, you've got black, you then have white, you then have the satin, and then you have the red. And I love the red in there, kind of going back to the classic kind of ROG vibes, where red was such a hallmark color for ROG for such a long period of time. I think really, really beautiful job. And that kind of the contiguous lines that you have right here with the memory kind of flowing down there into the little bit of the lighting that you have there on the block. And then the red, it kind of goes there in, right, again with the mono block right there. Looks beautiful. So really, really nice touch. Just all came together really, really nicely. But of course, Attila and his team, I mean, they're pros, so I would expect nothing less of this. The kind of the fit and finish and polish execution is all top notch. Really, nothing I would negate or really change about this, right? I mean, it's beautifully done. It's a great kind of combination of great EK water cooling hardware, the Hyperion chassis, and then of course ASUS ROG hardware right there, all coming together. A great example of what you could do in terms of beautiful build and some nice, really clean builds, clean bends. That's actually one of the challenges sometimes when you have so much parallel lines in there, is that if your bends are off, it actually can kind of be a little bit tricky because your eye will kind of immediately be able to know where the bend is off. So it's actually one of the pain points why I actually personally prefer a lot of the time soft tubing, because soft tubing is more forgiving that. You can have like more organic lines, where when you kind of go with a distro plate, you have those heavy perpendicular or heavy parallel lines, and you kind of actually need to make sure that they're on point, because if they're not on point, they'll look off, right? Your eyes just immediately gonna kind of go, it's like, it seems a little bit weird to me, right? But overall, really, really nicely done. I mean, what do you guys think? And then of course, just that beautiful X-frame design. Let's see over right here. So Lucas goes, now that looks great. Yeah, there you go. And we'll have the opportunity, I guess, for some people being able to actually be able to win a Hyperion, right? So overall, the Hyperion is looking sick. I would agree. I think, and it's a fantastic build. Really, really great job from the EK team right there, right? So actually, you're wrong. So Overwatch Diva goes, as I was wondering why the Hyperion chassis has 2 USB-C ports, but there are no ASUS Z790 boards. It actually is the Extreme. Even though the Extreme has gone EOL, we actually had the Extreme, and the Extreme did have actually front two USB-C ports, even actually with one port actually being a front Thunderbolt port. You have to remember that the way that we design it, we're not just designing to be able to be in alignment with our kind of motherboards, right? Of course, we are the world's largest motherboard manufacturer and the #1 enthusiast motherboard manufacturer, but the Hyperion we hope to see as being a chassis that's going to continue to be in the market for years. So as we continue to also evolve our motherboard lineup, you'll also see more choices available that will give you more of that dual access content connectivity, right? And that's something we've also even played previously with other ones, like even the prior actually Helios was the same thing, where not many motherboards actually had dual front USB 3 connectors. We only had select models that had dual front USB 3 connectors. So there was actually many people that would build in the Helios, and there would be two connectors that were actually not connected because their motherboard didn't have that. Because generally only the highest end boards that we would have actually dual front connectors, right? So it's that balancing act of enabling more functionality while at the same time, you know, also being cognizant that not every single product is going to be kind of complementary to that. In the same way, you can have 420 millimeter radiator support, but you know, we don't even have a 420 millimeter cooler, right? So you know, it's about trying to balance out the specification to what the community could want, where it can go, and of course allowing for some kind of evolution over time as well, right? Is that glass door longer than mine? No, the glass doors are exactly the same. There's no difference in that respect, right? So let me go ahead and bring up the submission form here so we can actually get some feedback here in terms of this build. So give me 1 second right here. And let's put it on, let's see which image I think is good here. So I think I like the kind of the angled shot. I think the angled shot looks kind of pretty cool. So I want to do this one and maybe this one. Yeah, I think these two are pretty cool, right? Yeah, so let's do that. And yeah, we'll kind of do that. Okay, so there we go. So that's the build. So this was submitted by Attila over from the EK team, right? You guys can, of course, go ahead and check out EK's YouTube channel, their website, a lot of great content that they do. And of course, they have their own actually also community group too that you guys can check out. Great space as well there. So does the build have a theme? Of course, liquid cooled perfection is what Attila notes there. What are 3 words used to describe the build? That was liquid cooled perfection. Does the build have a name? ROG Zord. Okay, so that's actually the name right there. I should actually put that, ROG Zord. I like that. So in terms of the hardware, we've got an ROG Hyperion GR701. It's got an ROG Crosshair 8 Extreme in there. Then it's going to have an GeForce RTX 4090 ASUS graphics card that's going to be in there. G-Skill Trident Z RGB memory. CPU is going to be a 5800X3D. EK loop with a vertical GPU holder, the Evo with the Gen 4 riser, right? And then cables are all actually from the Cable Mods team. So really, really nicely match up there in terms of the overall color scheme as well. And then overall kind of total budget in terms of what would be cost for this system, this is about a $6,000 system. Of course, that's not accounting for the time and effort and labor, right, that's been put in there, right? But of course, that's very evident in all of that high-end kind of blocks, right? The fittings, the tubing, right, that you go in there outside of just, of course, the core components. But you could easily scale down a couple of those things and have a pretty similar kind of vibe, like going from the Extreme to the Hero. You could save money right there and still have an amazing experience, right? Or same thing, you go from like a 4090 to a 4080, right? Or maybe not even going with the full distro, right? But going with just a nice integrated pump and reservoir would still look, I think, quite nice, right? But you could definitely save quite a bit there and still have a really, really nice looking high-end system, right? Is there anything that they would change about the build? They would actually maybe swap it out and go with the new, well, at the time, right, the MAXIMUS Z790 Extreme. What aspect of the build are they most proud of is the totally parallel tube runs. And so that's where I was talking about those parallel tube runs. They seem deceptive, but they can be really challenging in terms of creating a symmetry and consistency to those tube runs. So definitely gets a kudos and a thumbs up from me. How long did it take to put together the system? Was 2 days. It was ultimately just a showcase build, and one of their favorite functions or features is that they love the aesthetics of ASUS hardware and the Matrix LED, the Anime Matrix LED. I would 100% agree that, you know, the Anime Matrix LED is a really cool design element, and you know, EK designed some beautiful hardware, we designed some beautiful hardware, so of course when you bring it together, it comes together and it looks fantastic. So overall, really, really nicely done. H2O Computers notes is, love this one, EK rocks. Some great stuff there, so very, very cool. All right, so that is going to be our first build right here. So let's get ready to jump into our next one. We got one from, this is going to be I think a kind of the opposite. We're going to go kind of almost low key, not super crazy. This is going to be here from, let me see right here. believe, is it KW Low? I'm not sure. Hopefully I'm saying that right. And this is going to be a ProArt build. He doesn't have a name. So you know what that means, guys. If he doesn't have a name, it means you guys get to tell us what the name of the build should be. All right. So this is going to be, yeah, Kangwen Lo, I believe. Hopefully I'm saying that correctly. Let's go ahead and take a look at his system right here. Ooh, all right. We got a very nice, clean, and compact ProArt based build. Pretty nice right here. So we can see right here we've actually got a ProArt based motherboard. We have a nice clean Fantex AIO cooler in there, and we've actually got a ProArt based graphics card in there, and we've got some nice Mandarin orange iced tea. Ooh, that I like it. It's also nice and cold, so nice refreshing beverage right next to your system. I like that. All right. Even went kind of all the way to not even having any RGB memories. Just got some some XPG memory, non-RGB there, right? Just nice, very clean overall setup, very minimal, very refined. I'm torn. The ProArt card looks absolutely fantastic. I love the overall black shroud that we have, the nice subtle gold accents, how it all ties in together. Part of me almost sometimes wishes I could see that in the horizontal, because one of the really cool things about the ProArt graphics card is we also went with a anodized black heatsink. So the heatsink even looks really nice from the side, and it has this really nice profile silhouette. Plus, I would also think I like the accessibility to being able to get to maybe those bottom slots or those secondary M.2 slots that you have down there. But it's a really cool vibe in terms of the overall look and feel. Very contiguous, very clean, very nicely done. All those cables really nicely managed. Only thing I tell people sometimes is be careful when you pull cables really tight like that, is that sometimes you can actually pull the pin receptacle in out, and that can actually cause resistance issues. You can actually cause burning. So always be careful that when you're kind of pulling that, don't over strand, don't over pull the cable. Try to balance out that you want to have a nice bend or arc there, right, for maybe a clean pathway, but you don't necessarily want to be over kind of like torquing it or pulling it, if that makes sense. Okay. We look at the back right here. Ooh, they've actually got the ROG STRIX, looks like Aura-based power supply. So that's our new power supply. Again, they disabled RGB lighting on there. Then they've got their radiator all mounted up really nicely and clean. All the cables that are managed really nicely in there too. So overall, very nicely done. It's great. I mean, there's literally nothing I would, again, negate about this build. It's just nice, clean, compact. Looks good. It's nice there to be able to just put on your desk and be able to have a cool, quiet performance system and all the great I/O that you have on the ProArt board. So I'm definitely a fan. It gets a thumbs up from me. I dig it. Let me go ahead and bring up his submission form here. And what do you guys think? Do we got any possible names? Got any names that we think that we can throw out for that one? Let me go ahead and bring that back up here. Let's go ahead and I think that one, we'll keep that one as that primary image right there. So let me go ahead and just bring that one up there while I bring up the submission form. Okay, so for submission, again, this is going to be, let's see if this is from KW, and not his first build. Does the build have a theme? Been shocked by ASUS's new ProArt series, so you decided to make one, right? So that's actually pretty cool. So I guess he was really excited about our ProArt series, and that kind of inspired him to actually do a build. That's very, very cool. What are 3 words you would use to describe your build? Is clean, elegant, and classic. I would definitely agree. You know, it's very clean in terms of the cable management, the layout. There's nothing kind of extraneous or crazy right there. Definitely very refined in terms of not having a lot of extraneous kind of lighting or other kind of accent points on there. I do kind of go like maybe a little bit. I think maybe that Fantex, I really do like their block. It's really clean and a subtle low block, but I'm wondering if I feel like that a little bit of gloss sometimes is almost a little bit of a departure from some of the vibe of some of the other system right there, but it's still definitely, I think, in alignment there for kind of clean, classic, and elegant. I would like to know, if you guys haven't seen it, you guys should check out actually what we're going to be doing for our ProArt AIO cooler, which I think is going to look quite nice. Does your build have a name? I still haven't given it a name, but maybe you guys can help me name it. So why don't you guys go ahead and drop something there in the chat. In terms of the core hardware, it's got an Intel Core i7-13700. He's got a ProArt B760 Creator. It's a great choice, especially if you don't care about kind of overclocking. You just want a cool, performant, reliable system with good I/O. Great choice. He's running XPG Lantern memory, 6400 MT, 16 gigabytes by 4. That's the cool thing about B760 is you still actually do have overclocking DRAM support. So keep in mind, remember the default memory spec is actually only 52 excuse me, it's below 6400, but because you can support overclock, you can still run like 6400 empty memory. And then a ProArt 4070 Ti based graphics card, the ROG STRIX Aura Gold, the new ATX 3.0 based power supply, the 1000 watt race version. He must have maybe imported that in because we're just getting ready to release that into North America. Fantex Glacier 1 280 millimeter AIO, and then a Fantex 1700 AIO bracket, and then the X Proto ATX based chassis, and then custom length mod cables. Yeah, of course, just to be able to kind of optimize where you don't have extraneous cables, 100% makes sense. So overall total budget was about $2,200. What aspect was he most proud of for the build? Is finally found a perfect part to match them together. Yeah, I would agree. Definitely that Pro graphics card and that motherboard there, just a pairing that beautifully kind of goes together. Is there anything you would change about your build? RAM, we'll try to make maybe try to make it kind of a similar finish, and maybe change the heatsink. Oh, so yeah, I think that makes sense, right? Although I think the memory that looks great is, of course, Team Group has their T-Create memory, which has a beautiful kind of very similar finish, and they have gold accents on there, and it looks perfect, I think, with ProArt boards. So if you were to swap out the memory, I definitely don't think you have to. I think you could kind of maybe if you wanted to do kind of gold lettering here, that could kind of look kind of nice, and you could still keep that black. But if you did swap out the memory, I'd take a look at the Team Group T-Create based memory. I think that could be a good choice. How long did it take to build the system? It took together about a month total time. That wasn't, of course, for the build, but that was just be able to kind of get all the components and everything all together. What is the system used for? He actually does gaming. So Rainbow Six Siege, GTA Online, Monster Hunter Rise. And his favorite function or feature is actually really likes our UEFI BIOS. It's really easy to use because of all the features he wants, and he likes the Armory Crate software, just one software for kind of monitoring, managing, controlling everything within his system, man. Gets a thumbs up from me. Let's go ahead and see thoughts there from the community right there. Is the name Picasso? I kind of like that. I mean, I don't think somebody's given us a name, an actual proper name for a system. It's like people that ascribe to give their pets people names, like you call your dog Dave or something like that. all my dogs have proper names, right? One of my dogs is Bowie, MODOK, and then Ultron. So those are my 3 dogs' names. But Picasso, I kind of like that. Look sharp. Name would be Nude ProArt. Interesting. Hey, GP Stuntman, haven't seen you in a while, man. Thanks for joining us here. We're just wrapping things up. Mike gives us Pro Dark Knight. Oh, it's interesting. That's kind of cool. Facebook user gives us some love, says, awesome ProArt build. Love the ASUS lineup. Let's call it Dust Me Weekly build. Oh, I don't know. It depends actually, I think, on your kind of like your air pressure in your environment and kind of see your other factors on like how much that would be a factor. But yeah, I mean, definitely kind of sometimes one to consider. Robert gives us some feedback. He says the build is beautiful. I definitely think that he did a great job right there, right? Oh, hey, Danny. I'm actually looking to probably finish up having a little bit of call here with Danny a little bit, but looks like artistic expression to me. All right. And then we've got one right here is that, oh yeah, somebody asking about a separate question right here. JJ, I read an article about the ROG SWIFT Pro TWS Pro in an article that said the product is going to be canceled. Yes, I actually did a post about that in our PCDIY group just due to kind of the design and development. We ran into some kind of issues into it, so it has actually been kind of moved off in terms of being actually something that was in design and development working towards production to where now the project has been canceled. But of course, we are still actually producing a number of other IEM solutions. So we have the Cetra TWS, so our true wireless solutions. We have the Cetra also USB-C model. We also have an analog 3.5mm version. So that alongside, of course, our traditional headset-based options. So we've got tons of options, and we're going to continue to be looking at, I think, at different types of designs and different types of offerings for the community, because we definitely see that audio is kind of one of those things where definitely not one thing fits all, right? There's a lot of people that, like one thing, but they don't like another thing. And so we're trying to evaluate a lot of different types of technologies to be able to offer, a great range of choices to users, right? So Astro Computer goes, I'm horrible at names though. He gives it though. Nice build though. It's clean. I would agree. All right, nicely done there. So let's go into getting ready to almost wrap it up here. I think I've got 2 left here. So we're gonna go into a mini ITX build. This one I believe is going to be signature to ITX Slayer 1. So let me go ahead and get this one in here. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at this guy right here. So this one is pretty interesting, pretty unique. So this, we're going to first give him, actually, he's got one of his previous kind of system setups, which is pretty crazy. So he was actually running these actually CRT Trinitron based tubes. This is pretty crazy. This does throw me back because I used to actually have some CRTs. I had Wegas, of course, beautiful. There are actually still some inherent advantages sometimes to CRTs, in the same way, like, you know, I still actually have a plasma set too, right? You know, there's some really cool things about different technologies sometimes can provide benefits in different ways. But overall, really, really crazy, kind of cool setup. You can see right here, 5760 by 1200 at 96 hertz. That's a really interesting kind of gameplay experience. But one of the really cool things is, of course, that clarity, the motion clarity experience you can have with CRTs is, of course, very, very impressive, right? So also another previous setup right here, using my older 6700K and GTX 1080 and an N-Case M1 rig while working on his signature ITX based build. He's got some ROG wallpaper right there. He's got, of course, that ROG, that's our first generation, actually, desk mat. We had it in 4 different colors. Still actually one of my favorite colorways that we did in terms of the electro punk colorway, which I think was really, really nice. And look at one of our XG portable monitors using that little tripod mount, which is pretty cool right there. And also an ROG based display right there too. So really cool. I liked the kind of like the little bit of kind of like Punk 5 retro wave with some kind of throwback technology in here, and then the clip speakers too. Nice touch right there. That Trachea horn is always a nice little horn for kind of punchiness and liveliness, which is pretty cool. So okay, so now we're starting to see a little bit of some of the hallmarks right here. Let's see. Okay, so we can definitely see that we got some water cooling, right? We got that integrated DDC playing in here. All right. Ooh, some coolants. Coolants, one of actually my favorite vendors. We don't really see them anymore. They're not really active at a lot of producing components anymore for the PCDIY space. For a long time they were actually one of my favorite block manufacturers in terms of the performance, the solutions that they offered. I love their fittings, the quick disconnect options, but I actually always loved their aesthetic. They were kind of, in some ways, I feel kind of similar to kind of like Optimus now, where they kind of just had a really polished, clean, nice design language, right? Where, you know, it was just a really nice look and feel to the product, right? So here, as we can see, really, really nice. Just a nice, compact, clean, white enclosure, right? And then we've got that nice kind of, I like here, some nice playfulness here in terms of actually the tubing, right? Where you actually added a little bit of kind of identification to it, right? To supposed to going with maybe a more kind of parallel line. You actually have some interesting contrast here because you have angles here in the background in terms of the block design, but then you actually have some nice curvature being introduced here in terms of the actual runs. So that actually gives you a little bit of kind of contrast and texture, which is kind of cool. I like the actual little bit of the soft, almost like a mystic fog type kind of coolant vibe with a little bit of soft illumination. Then you got your contrast on the outside with white, and then also contrast with the black. It's nicely done. It's cool vibes. I definitely like the way that it played out, and definitely nice tight use of space. A lot of planning had to go in here, and this is really, really nice. Look at the attention to detail right here, at even having this kind of integrated little custom like bracket. That's pretty slick right there. And then some really nice runs right here. You can see right here the work that you've had to go into to kind of get this clearance. And even though you won't be able to see this, right, because the reality is, like, you're not going to see normally the top, or you're going to put the shell back over this, knowing that you still took the time to kind of route these really nicely, have some nice, clean, nice bends in there right there. That's attention to detail. Really, really nicely done. And of course, we can see we've got our ROG STRIX board. We had our ROG STRIX graphics card also in there right there. I love actually this two-tone color accent right here too, with the silver and then the white. I think that looks really nice. I really like that. Of course, it's not, you don't need to do that, but from just a design ID perspective, I'm always a fan, I think, of like a color blocking or contrast point. So I think pretty cool. And there you can see it kind of all thrown together. Oh man, I love this. A little nice test bed setup right there that you've got. You easily swap the kind of things back. This looks like a little bit of an older platform. This looks like maybe like DDR2 era, maybe something like that. It's pretty cool. And then of course the really cool part that you can see right there, this is somebody that appreciates nice high quality audio, but this is pretty slick. Of course you can see that all goes out to an external radiator, which is pretty cool. So you get that. Now it is interesting, I wonder how that affects that, like if you have too much issue there in terms of like turbulence, because of course that's going up right against the back wall. But I'm sure, you know, from a just overall displacement and efficiency standpoint, I mean, you've got more than enough so that it shouldn't be an issue. But it's cool. It's nice to just kind of be able to kind of isolate that out. If that's a quick disconnect fitting too, that's pretty slick too. And I do like the kind of the little chrome right there. I mean, it's cool. That's vibes right there, man. It's a very, very nice setup. Let me go ahead and bring up that submission form. Let me see what we have right here. So give me 1 second to bring that one up. Okay, so this is going to be as it was. Let me see. Oh, there we go. Get our image back up there. Okay, so I think what we can leave it on there. I think that's a pretty good image. And so this is going to be from Slayer 1. So he's actually French from Reunion Island. Okay, very cool. So let's see. He doesn't actually do that much PC building stuff, right? But you know, he it's just something that he was kind of excited and interested about in terms of having a transitional build and kind of doing something. So you know, does his build have a theme? He goes, he didn't really actually have one. He just wanted to have something that looked clean, kind of just a monochrome approach, so black and white and silver accents. And I definitely think you can see that kind of come through. I mean, you can definitely see this, of course, the black. You can see, of course, the silver, the white on the outside, and then this, of course, nice soft tubing with a little bit of translucence just to give you a little bit of soft illumination, to give you a little bit of pop, which is nice. It also has a nice kind of elegant, a little bit of a chill vibe. So, of course, when there's no lighting, you just get a little bit of kind of subtle lighting there in the background, which I think looks nice. It looks good. What are 3 words that you would use to describe the build? Compact, elegant, and unique. I would definitely say in terms of some of his layout approaches, some of the design accents, and even the kind of the color scheme. Yeah, I would definitely apply. I think compact, elegant, and unique, definitely they do align there. Does the build have a name? Signature ITX, inspired by the S and lowercase L-shaped tubes in the front of the GPU. I like the first letters of my handle, Slayer 1. So that's where it comes from. That's pretty cool. That's even nice to know, kind of like that you've tied together kind of elements right here, right? Where, again, if we go, there's the S, right? So that's pretty slick of why I said, oh, why do you throw that in there? So that's actually where that comes in. That's pretty cool. Yeah, that's a nice kind of thing to just be able to kind of see there. So that's pretty cool. So let me see. Oh, I'm going to have to get that link right there. Let me see if I can bring that link up on the component side. So I'll do that in a moment right there. What was the budget for the build? There was no budget, just upgrading things one at a time, starting with my previous O11D XL loop, and then he moved it into an ITX-based system right there. What aspect he's most proud of is that the uniqueness of the build with the super compact one-off custom parts that I had to design in CAD, trying to make everything look elegant as possible as the main goal. And after some long thinking, managing to fit the huge coolant's heat exchanger I've almost never seen anyone use in such a tiny case, just for the fun of trying it myself. Yeah, no, that's where, like I said, that was really, really cool to be able to see, like I said, these type of items and kind of make them work. And I mean, that's kind of like the bane of mini ITX, is trying to make those kind of things incorporate and work. But that's like kind of the cool thing about really being genuinely then and kind of like PCDIY, right? Is putting together that whole system, having it come out where it looks well executed, it's functional, and you know, ultimately works, right? So kudos, definitely are well deserved right there, right? Is there anything that they would change about the build? Change? No. I really enjoy the way it turned out, but improve? Sure. I had this idea about embedding 12-volt power for the external radiator inside 2 flex tube sleeves using coolant's QD3 fittings. So those are the quick disconnect fittings. Themselves as 12-volt and ground terminals, so not a single cable is present. I would require custom PCBs and more, but that's enough trouble for now. Maybe later. But that would be pretty slick. I could see how like that could even kind of streamline the look and allow you to have kind of even a more kind of unique approach to it. But that's pretty slick. And definitely, I think already with the way it turned out, it's already quite nice. So it's not really something you have to do, but like you said, maybe for fun, right? How long did it to actually build together the system? It was built in stages, but if I was going to do it all at once, including the time for CAD design, I would say it overall took about 2 to 3 months, depending on the shipping times, as well as waiting for some of the custom parts, kind of all those things coming together, which actually I think is quite reasonable. We see that usually kind of with builders that do a lot of custom of that work, you're usually talking about the months time frame. You know, we see a lot, you know, SNEF, for example, who does a lot of kind of custom chassis work, distro work, customized elements. Usually you're talking, you know, 1.5 months, 2.5 months, 3.5 months, sometimes even more, right? Just kind of waiting on everything, right? Plus the design work, right? What is the system used for? I don't game too much anymore. Some Call of Duty, some World of Warcraft Classic. It's my main PC I use for just everything from programming to hobbyist CAD, electronics design, and general use. And I can randomly fire up a game in a short amount of time before moving on to something else. Yeah, so it's a general purpose everyday driver system. Those are my favorite, right? Because you just use it for just part of your life, right? Very, very cool. So one of the things that he's a big fan of in terms of ASUS kind of functions or feature is not specific to his system, but he really really actually likes the anime matrix design on his actually Zephyrus G14 laptop. It's absolutely useless, but it's just so cool looking and fun, and it doesn't make the screen any thicker. Yeah, it just adds a really cool, interesting kind of aesthetic design element. Always makes people comment and laugh whenever they see it for the first time. They're not expecting it at all. I would agree, man. I think you did a fantastic job, man. You did a really, really cool, I think, innovative and kind of cool, unique approach to what you did with the build. And the fit and finish and execution is definitely really, really high. So I give you a lot of credit there. So Michael notes, very nice bends, a beautiful job. HO Computer says, great little build. My hands hurt looking at it. I 100% agree. Danny's Check Channel throws you out some love and says, man, awesome work, Slayer 1, as I love those ITX builds. Kevin Daly's also giving you loving the builds, right? So overall, I would agree. It's really, really nicely executed. The fit and finish is top notch, and it's great to just be able to see that all achieved within the system. So rounding things out, we've got our very last build to round out our stream, guys. So let's go ahead and jump into it. And again, if you guys are interested, make sure to go ahead and make sure to submit your systems for our PCDIY Builder Spotlight. I'm in a little bit of a backlog. I've got to get finished kind of going through recompressing all of them, but I will be doing that over the coming week. So if you guys haven't dropped in your builds, you're interested, again, new or old, it doesn't have to be a new build. It could be an old build. It could be an entry build. It could be an air-cooled build. It could be a water-cooled build. It doesn't matter. You know, guys just got to be featuring some ASUS hardware, but we'd love to have you submit it so that we can feature it here on the stream and also share it within our PCDIY community, as well as maybe you'll even see it shared on our ASUS social media channels. Have that opportunity to get some love on maybe that X, Instagram, you know, Facebook, wherever it might be. All right, guys. So let's take a look here at our last build. This is coming in from our friend Timmy, Mr. PC Works, and his WS-based build. So let's go ahead and take a look at this guy right here. All right, so this is a pretty cool build. Pretty crazy because traditionally not a lot of you necessarily see a lot of WS builds. If you guys know about our motherboard lineup, we actually have a comprehensive motherboard lineup. We have our Prime series, we have our TUF Gaming series, we have our ROG STRIX, we have ROG, we then have our you know, ProArt, and then we also have our WS, right? So we have a huge number of motherboards in terms of our lineup, and the WS series is actually even older than our ROG series of motherboards, if you can believe that. So pretty cool history that we have there, and this is a very, very cool build. So let's go ahead and take a look at it. So right here, you can take a look and see this build immediately right off the bat. I really actually love the color play right here. I love this kind of just this it's almost sateen finish that you have, and then you have, of course, the black that goes in there. I love actually the mix here between hardline and soft tubing, and then both coming together. I think that really, really, really looks nice, right? I think this is the lithium chassis, if I'm not wrong, from Yule Beast, but of course I'll check in the notes right there. But it's a really cool, just kind of open look. The elements of everything from the blocks that we have here to even just like the Hyper M.2 to the tubing to the frosting that we have on the Ace board right here, all these little things, they all just add really cool elements. So when you look at this, it just kind of has that vibe of just like, this is like high-end machinery kind of thing. It just has a really, really cool vibe and finish to it that is really kind of distinct and really, really interesting. Great job, right? And so of course Timmy and PC Works does a fantastic job in terms of his water cooling builds and does a really cool level of kind of customization and work right there. But it came through across really, really nicely. So as we kind of take a closer look in here, again, some really kind of just cool, simple things right here. You can see what they did with offering in some integrated routing paths, like almost an integrated distribution block, which is pretty interesting. So you could pass through in here, and then you could have those kind of come out the other side. It's pretty cool, like I said, to be able to have this hard tubing, but then also have this soft tubing be implemented right here. You can see actually right here, this is pretty slick. These are quick disconnect options, which makes sense on that, having that soft tubing and quick disconnect, because if you want to be able to remove the GPU or have quick access to the storage or other things like that, this is where you can see that it's a build, but it's a build that's intended to be usable, right? Where of course anybody knows that a hardline enabled build, that's like one of the advantages that we have with something like the DIMM.2 add-in design, where it's like that cool little add-in card, right? Where on that extreme board, not a lot of people account for it, but in a hardline build, that could literally save you 6, 7, 8 hours, because I don't have to rip out my whole block, drain it, remove a graphics card, lift up a heatsink to put in a drive. I can just do that here. So here you can see he's been thinking about how can I make that process easier for the actual user of the system, right? You still have access to all those slim SAS connectors and all those other elements that are right there. Of course, you've got your ECC memory in there and all the cooling, right, and all the rad space. But really, really nicely laid out, really, really nicely done. Of course, this is this massive EK course block. And here you're not only cooling the CPU, but you're actually also cooling the VRM right here. So some people go, did you forget a connector right here? That's actually not the case. This motherboard, because it actually supports both the W2400 and the W3400 series CPUs, the power envelope is very, very different. And actually peak power configurations, you could be talking like 1500 watts, right? That's when you will need sometimes those supplemental connectors. So it actually really comes down to the CPU configuration, the GPU configuration that you have, depending, that will actually determine which power connectors you have to have actually on the motherboard, right? But overall, really, really nicely done. Really cool. Yeah, so it was the Lithium E. Yes, so that is going to be from ULB's. Beautiful build. I mean, it's just clean, well executed, nicely laid out with functional elements. I love the triple Hyper M.2 add-in cards, which is pretty slick. I love that he picked the black ones too, because they look all nice in there, right? Let me go ahead and bring up the submission form right here and see what we got, and we'll go from there. So let me see here. Yep, I got his submission form. All right. So let's bring up that image and we'll go from there. All right, perfect. So we got his submission form and we'll see, we'll wrap it up here. So of course, yep, PC Works. This is from Tim Parker, right? You guys of course can check them out. Does the build have a theme? There's no real theme, just going for a clean workstation build. 3 words to describe the build: workstation, water cooled, and productivity. 100%, 100%, and 100%. Does the build have a name? Yes, actually Project Ace. I think Project Ace is perfect because of course it's the Ace motherboard, as opposed to the higher end version is the Sage. So we have the Sage and we have the Ace, right? So this is the ASUS W790 Ace motherboard. He's got the Intel, of course, Xeon 2455X in terms of the CPU. Then it has an ASUS 4090 TUF Gaming graphics card, which is of course also liquid cooled. RDIMM memory, DDR5, that's important to note. It's G.Skill DDR5 RDIMM memory, 64 gigs, 12 terabytes of Team Group storage in there. It's the ULB's Lithium E, and then it's EK water blocks cooling for there. Overall total price point for this build is $8,000, which of course doesn't surprise me, especially considering not only the storage, but also that CPU alone is a multi-$1,000 CPU. What aspects of the build are you most proud of? Is the tubing? Yeah, I think the tubing looks great on there. Is there anything you would change about the build? Originally, I wanted to powder coat the black parts a light gray, but didn't have time. Ooh, I think that light gray might have popped. Yeah, I can see where that goes. I mean, I still think it looks fantastic, but I can see where he was going with that light gray. How long did it take to put together the system? Was 2 days. What is the system used for? Is I'll be using this one for AI. Ooh, some interesting stuff. So maybe, who knows, all kinds of really exciting stuff when you get into AI, whether it's from modeling, of course, to animation, to analysis, to so many different fields that now AI and computation can be played around with, right? Favorite function or feature still has to be Armory Crate for me, and I would agree, the one-stop shop to be able to monitor, manage, control, update your system, and we even got more functions and features coming in, man. So fantastic, man. You killed it. Tim, as always, you do a fantastic job there. So very, very nicely done. Very cool. So let me go ahead and just see here. We got some feedback, right? HO Computers notes, right? This was a cool one. Timmy does good to work, right? Yep. Lithium E from ULBeast, right? Yep. That Lithium E chassis is more, yeah, I had a great opportunity to be able to talk with ULBeast. We want to actually hopefully see if we can collab on doing some cool stuff in the future. Love this WS build. The dew color scheme really, really works nicely, right? Kevin Daly goes, I love my X99 WS IPMI server build paired with a 16-core Xeon. It works great for my NAS. Great build. Awesome to see some WS love. I would agree, right? Yeah, so Overwatch Diva goes, it's interesting. It goes, it's a cool build, but where's the functionality? Another build with no USB-C connection or fast charging used here. Only one build has used full front panel connections. It really varies. I've covered builds where we totally have them, and we have some people that don't. What I actually find that's pretty interesting from this perspective is that it really kind of just comes down to the builder and user. Some people, sometimes they don't want the cables. Sometimes we actually did we did actually a pretty big poll about this recently. Well, not recently, but I think within the last 6 months. But it was pretty large level feedback. We actually found over 50% of users don't effectively use the front chassis connectors. So the thing is, you yourself, you might use them, but somebody else doesn't. And I don't know that that's not utilizing the full functionality. Ultimately, it comes down to that if you don't find that that's benefiting you, then there's no reason to make those connections, right? You're just adding in another cable that you won't necessarily benefit from. I do like having front panel connections. For me, I don't necessarily maybe have stuff hang off them, but I like to sometimes use them for like wireless adapters, right? Or sometimes just quickly connecting like maybe a storage drive or like a headphone. So I can totally understand the value add to that. But even from us, from a design perspective, that's sometimes where we have to balance out, where we've had boards where like we prioritize doing like on a lot of the boards, the 20 gigabit USB, we would put it on the back, and we wouldn't put it on the front because we knew that there was actually a lower percentage of people that were using front versus rear, right? And so that all just comes down to ultimately the diversity of the kind of the PCDIY builder and kind of the community, right? So the build is just insane. Every PCI populated, right? And still looks so clean, right? We're getting ready to wrap things up here. Hey, Vitor, happy to have you here. I'm going to answer this just last two questions as we get ready to close things out. How limited will the EVA 02 collection be? We will see at stores like Micro Center like we did with the EVA 01 collab. So like I said, we'll have more information. We're probably getting Wave 1 release early next month. We'll have, like I said, 4 wave releases, Wave 1, Wave 2, Wave 3, Wave 4 going all the way into October. As far as the quantities, I can't give you the hard number quantities, but I can tell you we have a pretty reasonable quantity assortment, so it shouldn't be like super fast to sell out, but I do expect that we will sell out of all of the products. In terms of kind of the quantity that we have an expectation that I think by the end of the year we'll definitely have it sold out. And Micro Center will be part of our assortment program. To what extent, make sure to keep it tuned, and you'll find out to what degree all the products will be available. Okay, all right. So overall, yeah. Let's go lastly right here, just one last question here. Hi JJ, on the subject of monitors, will the PG38UQ be more widely available? It seems to be a great size at 38 inches. It's actually the only monitor on the market that meets that. It's actually a very unique monitor. It seems to be great at 38 inches, but it has such a low profile release. I don't see it widely available. Yeah, I mean, it's a tricky balancing act, right? So, sometimes when we release new products, right, it can be a process to coordinate with what we call our channel partners. So sometimes some channel partners have what are called like advanced forecasting, where they kind of need to know about products maybe like 3, 4, 5, 6 months ahead of time to be able to kind of list a product. Other times you might be able to be more quickly be able to kind of release a product and get a partner to kind of list it onto their site outside of offering things like our ASUS store. Part of that is also why we continue to kind of advance our ASUS store, so that we can always have kind of a direct to consumer option now, so that we can always say, hey, you can go to our ASUS store and purchase it there, even if it might be some time before you can maybe get it at Micro Center, or before you can buy it from Amazon, or before B&H, right? There's always some variability in that. Generally, in what I refer to as our new product introductions, we do attempt to provide you visibility at letting you know, hey, make sure to watch these channels because this might be a limited edition SKU. I do agree this is a fantastic model. I really think it's a great choice, and it's one we're kind of testing the waters with, where we had people that was like 42 inches and 48 inches are way too big. But like 38 inch, it's quite a bit more expansive. It's quite a bit bigger than 32, right? But still really kind of desk more compact, 4K with that high refresh rate. I think it's a fantastic option. But that's also one of those balancing acts, is that because it's maybe so new, it can be one of those things where it takes a little bit more time to kind of push other kind of partners to go, hey, we see a great opportunity here. Let's work with you on hopefully being able to offer this to more users. But rest assured, it's not going anywhere. We do have it as an active production model, so you will be able to see it. But yeah, you might not necessarily see it from every single channel partner. All right, guys, that wraps up our stream. As always, thank you guys for joining us. This has been a feature pack stream and a pretty long one, but it's been great to be able to wrap things up, and also exciting, and congrats. And I'm going to give a big thank you again to our marketing director, who went ahead and gave us an approval to do a cool giveaway. So make sure to keep it tuned in the PCDIY group for a follow-up announcement on how we'll kind of exactly handle that Hyperion giveaway. But we're going to do that to celebrate the PCDIY 100th stream, and kudos to the next streams that we're going to be having for the remainder of the year. So as always, guys, take care, take it easy, enjoy the rest of your day, have a fantastic Friday night, stay safe, stay healthy, stay cool if it's going to be hot in your region, and have a great Saturday and Sunday. Take care, take it easy, and best of luck with your builds. Bye-bye.